It began in the half-light between night and morning, when the world feels suspended, and every sound carries farther than it should. The fields around Brécourt Manor lay flat and quiet beneath a thin veil of mist. Dew clung to tall grass. The earth still bore the scars of shellfire from the night before, but for a moment, nothing moved. To the untrained eye, it looked like an ordinary stretch of Norman countryside. Hedgerows, open farmland, low rises that barely broke the horizon. But hidden within that calm were guns already loaded, already aimed, already waiting to speak. Those guns were tearing Utah Beach apart. Every few minutes, artillery thunder rolled inland from the fields near the manor, shells screaming overhead and crashing down on American troops, still fighting to organize themselves after the airborne landings. Each blast sent shockwaves through sand and steel and flesh. Each impact delayed reinforcements. Each round threatened to turn a fragile foothold into catastrophe. Somewhere in the chaos behind the lines, a small group of paratroopers gathered themselves. They were scattered. They were under strength. They were exhausted. They had landed far from where they were supposed to be. But they were airborne infantry, trained to fight alone if necessary, trained to adapt when plans fell apart. Their uniforms were torn from trees and hedges. Faces were streaked with dirt and sweat. Ammunition was counted carefully. Orders were minimal, almost casual in their simplicity. Find the guns, silence them. What happened next would last less than an hour, but it would echo through military history for decades. The approach to Brécourt Manor was dangerous in its simplicity. Open fields offered little cover. Hedgerows limited movement and visibility. German positions were dug in with care, artillery pieces spaced deliberately, trenches linking each gun so crews could reinforce one another under fire. Machine guns guarded the approaches. Infantry waited nearby, ready to counterattack. On paper, the attack should have failed. A handful of men advancing against fortified artillery in daylight was not a sound plan. There were no reserves, no heavy weapons, no artillery support, no margin for error. And yet, the assault began anyway. The paratroopers moved low through the grass, inching forward, using folds in the land that barely existed. Every step was measured. Every breath felt loud. The guns fired again, the concussion rippling across the fields, reminding them why they were there and how little time they had. The first contact came suddenly. Gunfire erupted from the hedgerow as the Americans rushed forward. Grenades arced into trenches. Rifles cracked at close range. Shouts echoed across the field, sharp and urgent. Smoke drifted low, clinging to the ground as men pressed into positions never meant to be taken from the front. What followed was not chaos. It was controlled violence. One gun was silenced, then another, then another. Each position was taken the same way. Speed, surprise, aggression. German crews were overwhelmed before they could fully react. Trenches that had been designed for defense became corridors of confusion. The Americans moved from one gun to the next with relentless momentum, never stopping long enough for fear to settle. Wounded men were dragged to cover. Ammunition was redistributed on the move. Orders were shouted, then replaced by hand signals and instinct. There was no time to pause. Every second the guns remained active meant more shells falling on the beach. As the fight unfolded, German reinforcements began to move toward the manor, drawn by the sound of gunfire. Machine guns opened up from the flanks. Mortars dropped rounds into the field. The situation grew more dangerous by the minute, and still, the attack continued. By the time the last gun was destroyed, the field around Brécourt Manor was littered with spent casings, shattered equipment, and silence where thunder had once lived. Smoke drifted slowly upward. The grass lay flattened and torn. The artillery barrage that had punished Utah Beach simply stopped. The paratroopers did not celebrate. They did not cheer. They regrouped, counted heads, redistributed what little they had left, and prepared to move again. Because the war did not pause for small victories, even perfect ones. The Battle of Brécourt Manor mattered not because of its size, but because of its precision. It showed what initiative looks like when plans fail, what leadership looks like under pressure, what training becomes when stripped of structure and support. It became a quiet blueprint for small unit tactics, studied not for spectacle, but for clarity. It was a moment where a few decisions, made quickly and correctly, changed the course of a much larger battle. Tonight, we return to that field. To the grass bent low by morning mist. To the thunder of guns that had to be silenced. To the men who advanced knowing exactly how unlikely success truly was. To a fight measured not in miles or days, but in minutes that mattered more than anyone realized at the time. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something simple and personal. Where in the world are you listening from right now, and what hour has quietly arrived around you? And if these long, steady journeys into history help your breathing slow, your thoughts settle, or your mind drift toward rest, consider liking the video and subscribing. June 6th, 1944, 1:15 in the morning. The sky over Normandy erupts in fire. Lieutenant Richard Winters feels his C-47 aircraft lurch violently as German anti-aircraft shells tear through the fuselage. Metal screams. Men shout prayers into the wind. The red light above the jump door flashes. 30 seconds to exit. Then the aircraft banks hard, throwing paratroopers against bulkheads, and Winters knows something has gone catastrophically wrong. The pilot is lost, panicked, flying too fast and too low. When the green light finally illuminates, Winters hurls himself into darkness over a country he's never seen, toward a mission he can barely remember, with men he can no longer see. He lands hard in a hedgerow 3 minutes later, alone. The shock of impact drives air from his lungs. Thorns tear at his face. His rifle, the weapon he's carried for 2 years of training, is gone, ripped away during the violent parachute opening at 400 feet instead of the planned 1,500. Winters lies in French dirt with only a trench knife, listening to machine gun fire stitch across fields in every direction. Somewhere in this darkness are the 140 men of Easy Company, his brothers from 2 years of training at Camp Toccoa and Fort Benning. Somewhere out here is the objective, Causeway number 2, the vital exit route off Utah Beach. But right now, Richard Winters is 26 years old, a former business student from Pennsylvania, and he is completely, utterly alone. The assembly begins in fragments. A cricket, the small metal clicker each paratrooper carries, sounds in the darkness. Click-clack, the signal. Winters answers. Click-clack. He moves toward the sound, crouching low, through hedgerows that rise like ancient walls, 12 feet high in some places, earthen fortifications that have divided these Norman fields for 1,000 years. He finds Private Popeye Wynn first, then Sergeant Bill Guarneri, then others, emerging from the bocage like ghosts. They whisper the password, flash. The response, thunder. By 0300 hours, 13 men huddle in a drainage ditch near Sainte-Marie-du-Mont. 13, not 140. Less than 10% of Easy Company has found the rally point. The missing aren't just scattered, they're dead, wounded, or captured. As dawn breaks gray and cold, Winters sees the evidence. A paratrooper hangs from a telephone pole, shot while tangled in his lines, swaying in the morning breeze. Another floats face down in a flooded field, his parachute billowing around him like a shroud. Equipment containers that should have landed in the drop zone are scattered across 25 square miles. The radios are smashed, the mortars are missing. The careful planning, the maps memorized, the rehearsals conducted in English fields, all of it dissolved in the chaos of a 10-minute flight over enemy territory. 6,600 paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division jumped tonight. Only 2,500 landed anywhere near their designated drop zones. Winters pulls out his map, orienting himself by the church steeple of Sainte-Marie-du-Mont, visible against the lightening sky. Their objective, Causeway number 2, is 3 miles south. 3 miles might as well be 300. Between here and there lies unknown numbers of German defenders, minefields, machine gun nests, and the labyrinthine hedgerows that turn every field into a potential killing ground. He has 13 men. Most are equipped only with rifles and the ammunition they jumped with. One has a Browning automatic rifle. One has a Thompson submachine gun. No one has a radio that works. No one has made contact with battalion headquarters. They are, in every tactical sense, cut off. The hedgerows themselves are revelation and nightmare. These aren't the decorative borders Winters saw in England. They're ancient barriers of earth and stone, topped with impenetrable thickets of bramble and hawthorn, some as old as Roman occupation. The Germans have transformed them into ready-made fortifications. Each field becomes a room with walls you cannot see through and cannot climb. Movement requires finding the narrow gaps, the ancient farm gates, the places where defenders can set perfect ambushes. Winters understands with sinking clarity that the terrain itself is the enemy. The Bocage defeats tactics learned on the flat training grounds of Georgia. Everything here is close, confined, deadly at 30 yards instead of 300. At 0600 hours, the sound of naval gunfire begins, a distant rolling thunder from the coast. The invasion is happening. Somewhere 4 miles north, thousands of American soldiers are climbing down cargo nets into landing craft, preparing to hit Utah Beach. Those men are depending on the airborne troops, on Winters and what remains of Easy Company, to secure the causeways, to silence the German artillery, to make the beach exits viable. But Winters cannot reach his objective with 13 men. He makes the hardest calculation of his young military career: abandon the primary mission or find a new way to be useful. The choice is taken from him 30 minutes later when he encounters Captain Clarence Hester, the battalion operations officer, emerging from another hedgerow with his own small band of scattered paratroopers. Hester's news is simultaneously relieving and terrifying. Other Easy Company men are scattered across the area. Perhaps 70 or 80 have survived and are slowly coalescing into functional groups. But the battalion is in chaos. D Company is fighting in Sainte-Marie-du-Mont. F Company is pinned down near the coast. And most critically, German artillery is systematically destroying landing craft at Utah Beach. Hester heard it on a working radio before the battery died. The beach is taking devastating fire from inland positions. Men are dying in the surf, killed before they reach sand. The entire invasion's success depends on eliminating those guns. Hester looks at Winters with the expression of a man dealing cards in a rigged game. He needs someone to lead a scratch force against fortified artillery positions. He needs someone now. The weight of it settles on Winters like a physical thing. He's never led men in combat. His only battle experience is 2 years of training exercises where blank ammunition made warfare seem like theater. But he's also learned something in those 2 years. Combat is the ultimate test of whether training matters or whether it's all just ritual and wishful thinking. Every lesson from every exhausting march, every field problem, every night navigation exercise, every critique session with instructors. It either means something now or it was all performance. Winters looks at his 13 men. They're watching him with the particular intensity of soldiers who know they're about to be asked to do something terrible. Popeye Wynn is 19. Buck Compton is 22. Bill Guarnere is 23, the oldest among them, except for Winters himself, at 26. He tells them the truth because lying to men about to enter combat seems like a sin worse than fear. German artillery is killing Americans on the beach. Battalion needs those guns silenced. We don't know how many defenders. We don't know the exact positions. We don't have enough ammunition for a sustained firefight. We don't have radio contact. We might not get reinforcements. But we're the only force in position to try. Winters watches their faces process this information. No one objects. No one asks to be excused. That's the thing about paratroopers. They volunteered twice, once for the Army and once for jump school. They chose this. In the growing light of D-Day morning, with gunfire echoing across Norman fields and the fate of thousands hanging on the actions of a handful, Easy Company begins the longest walk of their lives toward a place they'll later know as Brécourt Manor. 0630 hours, June 6, 1944, Utah Beach. The first landing craft drop their ramps. American soldiers of the 4th Infantry Division step into chest-deep water, struggling toward a shore against tide and current. Then the artillery begins. German 105mm howitzer shells scream overhead, not the flat crack of direct fire, but the arcing whistle of indirect fire from positions miles inland. The first shell lands 30 yards offshore, detonating among packed soldiers still in the water. The concussion kills 6 men instantly. The second shell hits a landing craft before it can drop its ramp, transforming 36 soldiers into casualties before they fire a shot. By 0700 hours, 197 Americans are dead or wounded on Utah Beach, and 60% of those casualties come not from beach defenders, but from artillery firing from positions the soldiers cannot even see. Captain Clarence Hester stands in a commandeered farmhouse 2 miles inland, studying reports that come in fragments from runners because radios fail in the Bocage. He's the battalion operations officer for 2nd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, which means he's responsible for making chaos into order, for turning scattered paratroopers into an effective fighting force. The map on the wall tells a story of disaster and improvisation. Blue marks show where companies should be. Red marks show where they actually are. The gap between blue and red is measured in miles and missing men. But one red mark dominates Hester's attention, a position 2,000 meters southwest of his current location, marked Enemy Artillery, Active. The intelligence came from multiple sources. A French civilian reported seeing 4 large guns positioned in an orchard near Brécourt Manor. An aerial reconnaissance photograph taken 3 days before D-Day showed suspicious positions but couldn't confirm artillery. Now, with shells landing on Utah Beach in a steady rhythm, 15 rounds per minute, witnesses report, the confirmation is written in American blood. Hester does the mathematics that every artillery officer knows by heart. A German 105mm LEFH 18/40 howitzer can fire 15 rounds per minute with a trained crew. 4 guns equals 60 rounds per minute. 60 rounds per minute for 3 hours equals 10,800 shells. Not all will hit, but artillery doesn't need precision when targets are packed landing craft and crowded beach sectors. A miss by 50 yards still kills. The map reveals why this particular battery is so dangerous. Brécourt Manor sits on a slight elevation, barely noticeable to the eye, but sufficient to give the guns clear line of sight to both Utah Beach and Causeway No. 2. The beach is 4 miles north. The causeway is just 2 miles east. These guns can interdict both the landing and the inland movement. They occupy what military planners call a key terrain feature, ground that, if controlled by the enemy, makes everything else harder or impossible. Hester traces the firing angles with his finger. The German artillery commander chose this position with professional skill. The 90-degree angle allows enfilade fire, hitting targets from the side where they're most vulnerable. Landing craft are long and narrow. Shells striking from the side have maximum chance of hitting something vital. Colonel Robert Sink, regimental commander of the 506th PIR, enters the farmhouse at 0800 hours, demanding updates. Sink is a career officer, 40 years old, responsible for 3,000 men scattered across Norman countryside. His question cuts through preliminaries. Why are we still taking artillery fire from inland positions? Hester explains the Brécourt situation. 4 guns, estimated 50 or more defenders, fortified positions, exact layout unknown. Sink's response is immediate and uncompromising. Neutralize those guns immediately. Not capture, not scout, neutralize. The word carries weight. It means render ineffective by whatever means necessary. It means men are dying every minute those guns fire, and every minute of delay is measured in body bags. But Hester faces the fundamental problem of airborne operations on D-Day. He doesn't have the force required for the mission. Standard Army doctrine for assaulting a fortified position calls for 3-to-1 numerical advantage, 3 attackers for every defender. If Brécourt holds 50 Germans, he needs 150 Americans. He has perhaps 80 men from scattered companies within 2 miles of the position, and most are already committed to other missions. Sainte-Marie-du-Mont must be cleared. Causeway No. 2 needs securing. German counterattacks could come from any direction. The operational calculus is brutal. He can't spare 150 men for one mission, no matter how critical. He can spare perhaps 15. Maybe 20 if he pulls men from other positions and accepts risk elsewhere. The German artillery piece itself, the 105mm LEFH 18/40, represents 5 years of Wehrmacht refinement. The designation Leichte Feldhaubitze means light field howitzer, though at 4,400 pounds it requires a crew of 8 and a vehicle to move. Maximum range, 10,675 meters, sufficient to hit targets 6.5 miles away. Shell weight, 32 pounds of high explosive. Rate of fire, 15 rounds per minute in short bursts, 8 rounds per minute sustained. The German version improved on the original 1935 design with a muzzle brake that reduced recoil, allowing faster follow-up shots. In competent hands, this weapon can devastate massed infantry, suppress armor, interdict supply routes, or, as now, turn a beach landing into a slaughter. Hester makes the decision that will define careers and create legends. He calls for Lieutenant Richard Winters. The choice is partially pragmatic. Winters is available, nearby, and has collected a small force that isn't committed elsewhere, but it's also intuitive. Hester watched Winters during training, saw how he approached field problems with methodical precision, how other men responded to his quiet competence. Winters doesn't inspire through speeches or bravado. He inspires through example, through visible competence, through the sense that he knows what he's doing even when everything is chaos. Hester needs that quality now. He needs someone who can take inadequate forces, insufficient intelligence, and impossible odds, then make something work anyway. When Winters arrives at 0845, Hester delivers the mission without preamble. 4 German artillery pieces at Brécourt Manor, approximately 2,000 meters southwest, currently engaging Utah Beach. Estimated 50 or more defenders. Your orders: assault the position, neutralize the guns, with whatever men you can gather. Winters asks the questions that reveal his training. What support is available? Answer: none. All mortars and machine guns are committed or lost. What about air support? Answer: Army Air Corps is hitting strategic targets miles inland, not available for tactical support. Artillery preparation? Answer: we have no artillery in position yet. You're assaulting artillery with rifles. Winters absorbs this, nods, and asks the only question that matters: when? Hester's answer is 4 words: as soon as possible. The walk back to his small command is 200 yards through hedgerows, but Winters uses the time to begin planning. He has 13 men, now possibly a few more as stragglers find Easy Company's positions. Assault on a fortified position with 15 men against 50 defenders violates every principle taught at Fort Benning. But Fort Benning never contemplated D-Day, never imagined situations where normal doctrine simply doesn't apply because normal resources don't exist. Winters thinks about fire and movement, the fundamental infantry tactic. One element shoots while another element moves. Suppressive fire pins defenders while maneuver element advances. Simple in concept, brutally difficult in execution, especially when you're outnumbered 3-1. The sound of thunder continues from the north. Naval guns, artillery, the rumble of invasion. Somewhere in that cacophony, men are dying because 4 German guns fire unchallenged from an orchard near a manor house. Winters knows the strategic calculation. His 13 men are expendable if their sacrifice silences those guns. 20 American casualties to save 200 beach casualties is simple mathematics. But these aren't numbers to Winters. They're Popeye Wynn, who draws cartoons during breaks. They're Buck Compton, who played baseball at UCLA. They're Bill Guarneri, who joined the Paratroopers to avenge his brother killed at Monte Cassino. Winters must ask these men to advance across open ground, toward fortified positions held by professional soldiers, and somehow he must keep enough of them alive to accomplish the mission. The weight of command, the thing they never adequately explained in officer training, settles on his shoulders like gravity doubling. 0845 hours. Lieutenant Richard Winters stands at the edge of a hedgerow, studying the ground that separates his position from Brécourt Manor. The view is deceptively pastoral, gently rolling fields, morning sun breaking through clouds, an orchard in the middle distance marking the target area. It looks nothing like a battlefield. That's the thing about Normandy that no briefing prepared him for. Death hides in beauty here. Those peaceful fields are segmented by hedgerows that conceal machine gun nests. That innocent orchard shelters artillery pieces that have killed dozens of Americans in the past 2 hours. The grass between here and there, 200 meters of open ground, might as well be 200 miles. He turns to assess his force. 13 men have become 12. Private Robert Smith twisted his ankle badly during the drop, can barely walk, useless for assault. 12 soldiers to attack an artillery battery. Winters knows the faces looking back at him, knows their histories. Private John Lorraine, who could shoot expert marksman scores drunk at 300 yards. Sergeant Carwood Lipton, dependable as sunrise, who never complained during the worst training marches. Private Joe Toye, built like a brick wall, who carried wounded men on training exercises when others couldn't. These aren't strangers. They're men who know each other's habits, can anticipate reactions, trust each other with the absolute faith that only shared hardship creates. That trust might matter more than numbers. The briefing happens in a drainage ditch, all of them crouched low, while occasional German rifle fire cracks overhead. Harassing fire, unaimed, meant to suppress and intimidate. Winters uses a stick to sketch the situation in mud. 4 guns, probably arranged in standard battery formation, 50 meters between positions. Unknown number of defenders, assume at least 10 per gun position, plus command element, figure 50 total minimum. Our advantages: surprise, aggression, superior training. Their advantages: prepared positions, numerical superiority, crew-served weapons, clear fields of fire. The plan: advance to tree line under covering fire, identify first gun position, assault using fire and movement, neutralize the gun, then reassess. Simple, brutal. The kind of plan that survives first contact with enemy because it's adaptable. Weapons check reveals the harsh reality of their equipment situation. 9 men carry M1 Garand rifles, the standard American infantry weapon, 30-06 caliber, 8-round magazine, accurate to 500 yards in skilled hands. 2 men have M1 carbines, lighter, lower powered, better for close combat but less effective at range. 1 man, Sergeant Bill Guarnere, carries a Thompson submachine gun, devastating at close range, nearly useless beyond 100 yards. Private Popeye Wynn has the Browning automatic rifle, the squad's heavy firepower. 20-round magazine, can deliver suppressive fire, but chews through ammunition terrifyingly fast. Total ammunition: approximately 800 rounds of rifle ammunition, 600 rounds of carbine, 300 rounds of .45 caliber for the Thompson, 400 rounds for the BAR. Grenades: 4 fragmentation grenades total. That's everything. Winters issues assignments based on what he learned studying tactics at Fort Benning, lessons taught by Captain Herbert Sobel during training at Camp Toccoa. The irony isn't lost on him. Sobel, the officer Easy Company despised, the martinet who made their lives miserable with pointless inspections and harassment, actually taught them something valuable. Sobel's obsession with fire discipline, with controlled movement, with maintaining formation under stress, it all seemed like peacetime nonsense until now. Now Winters understands. Fire and movement only works if men trust each other enough to expose themselves while others shoot. That trust comes from training that binds men together even when they hate the trainer. Sobel was a terrible leader, but perhaps an effective teacher. The distinction matters. The walk toward the tree line begins at 0930 hours. They move in a staggered line, 5 meters between men, weapons ready, eyes scanning for threats. The technique is called traveling overwatch, movement with security, slow but safer than simple marching. Every step feels like it takes minutes. Winters expects machine gun fire at any moment, expects the rip of German MG-42, the weapon American soldiers call Hitler's buzzsaw for its distinctive 1,200 rounds per minute cyclic rate. But the fire doesn't come. Perhaps the Germans don't see them yet. Perhaps the Germans are conserving ammunition. Perhaps the Germans are preparing an ambush at closer range where they can't miss. The uncertainty is its own kind of terror. 75 meters, 100 meters. Winters watches his men, checking intervals, monitoring for bunching. When soldiers get scared, they unconsciously cluster together, seeking comfort in proximity, creating perfect targets for artillery or machine guns. He signals, spread out. They do immediately, without question. That's discipline. That's training manifesting when it matters most. 150 meters. The tree line is close now, 50 meters ahead. If they can reach that cover, they'll have concealment and protection. If the Germans are going to fire, it will be soon. Long-range fire is less accurate, but allows defenders more time to shoot. Close-range fire is devastating, but gives defenders less reaction time. 175 meters. A single shot cracks out. Not the sustained burst of a machine gun, but one rifle shot, then another. The rounds snap past, the distinctive supersonic crack of bullets that miss by feet rather than yards. Someone spotted them. Winters doesn't order his men down. Stopping in the open is death. He shouts the only command that makes sense. Run! 12 men sprint the final 50 meters, irregular spacing, weapons clutched, boots pounding earth. More shots crack out. A bullet tears through the canteen on Private Lorraine's hip, water spurting. Another hits the ground near Sergeant Lipton, kicking up dirt. Then they're in the tree line, throwing themselves behind trunks, gasping for breath, and somehow, miraculously, no one is hit. The first pause allows assessment. They've covered 200 meters of open ground under fire without casualties. That's not tactical brilliance, that's luck, and Winters knows you can't count on luck twice. He low crawls forward to the edge of the tree cover, studying the orchard ahead. Through gaps in foliage, he can see movement, German soldiers, maybe 200 meters distant, moving between positions. He can't see the guns yet, but he knows the rough location based on the terrain. The ground ahead slopes gently downward into the orchard, providing some concealment for approach but also creating dead space where Germans could hide. Every tactical advantage has corresponding disadvantage, Sergeant. Carwood Lipton crawls up beside him, breathing hard. What do you see? Winters points out the German positions, explains his theory of the layout, outlines the next move. Lipton listens, asks one question. What if there's more of them than we think? It's the question that haunts every small unit action. Intelligence is always incomplete, always optimistic, always wrong in the direction of underestimating enemy strength. What if it's not 50 Germans, but 100? What if there are more guns? What if the position is more heavily fortified than aerial reconnaissance suggested? Winters gives the only honest answer he can. Then we do what we can and hope for reinforcements. It's not inspiring. It's not what soldiers want to hear, but it's truth. The decision point arrives without ceremony. Continue the assault with 12 men against unknown defenses, or pull back and report the position is too strong. Military doctrine would support withdrawal. Preserving force for future operations makes strategic sense. But strategic sense doesn't account for men dying on Utah Beach every minute these guns fire. Strategic sense doesn't account for the entire invasion's success depending on securing causeways. Strategic sense is written by people who aren't here, aren't watching friends load weapons with shaking hands, aren't feeling the weight of impossible choices. Winters makes the choice battalion needs him to make, the choice that might get them all killed. They attack. Not because it's smart, because it's necessary. 09:47 hours. The silence before violence stretches like wire pulled to breaking. Lieutenant Winters lies prone at the tree line, M1 Garand tight against his shoulder, watching German positions through gaps in foliage. 75 meters ahead, partially concealed by earthen berm and camouflage netting, sits the first gun. He can see the barrel now, the distinctive muzzle brake of the 105mm Leffe 18/40, the business end of a weapon that's been killing Americans for the past 3 hours. Around the gun, maybe 5 or 6 soldiers move with the practiced efficiency of trained crews. These aren't garrison troops or rear echelon conscripts. These are artillery professionals, and they're good at their deadly work. The assault plan is simple because complexity gets men killed. Winters will initiate with rifle fire at the gun position, creating noise and confusion. Sergeant Bill Guarneri will lead a 3-man team on a flanking maneuver through the hedgerow to the right, approaching the gun position from the side where defenders have limited visibility. Private Popeye Wynn will provide suppressive fire with the Browning automatic rifle, that devastating 20-round magazine capable of making defenders keep their heads down. Everyone else shoots at anything that moves near the gun until Guarneri's team is in position to assault with grenades. Casualties are expected. Success is not guaranteed, but doing nothing guarantees failure. Winters counts down with his hand. 3 fingers, 2 fingers, 1 finger. Then he squeezes the trigger. The M1 Garand barks, a sharp, distinctive crack different from any other weapon. The bullet impacts somewhere near the gun position, kicking up dirt. Before the Germans can react, 11 other weapons open fire. The tree line erupts in muzzle flashes and smoke. Bullets snap through air, impacting earth berms, sparking off metal, punching through camouflage netting. The sound is overwhelming. Not the controlled shooting of a rifle range, but chaos, violence, noise designed to create terror. That's the secret of suppressive fire. You're not trying to kill, you're trying to make the enemy believe that lifting his head will get it blown off. Guarneri moves the instant Winters fires. He's a Philadelphia street kid, tough as boot leather, who volunteered for paratroopers after his brother was killed in Italy. He takes Private Joe Toye and Private Ed Tipper with him, crawling through a gap in the hedgerow, using the cover of gunfire to mask their movement. The hedgerow here is ancient, probably medieval, built by farmers centuries ago to mark property and contain livestock. The earth berm is 4 feet high, topped with blackberry brambles that tear at uniforms and skin. Guarneri crawls anyway, elbows and knees, weapon cradled, moving with the determination of a man who has personal scores to settle with Germans. 40 meters into the flank. The German position erupts with return fire. A machine gun opens up, not the feared MG-42, but something lighter, probably an MG-34, firing in short, controlled bursts. The gunner can't see Winters' men through tree cover, but he's shooting at muzzle flashes, hoping to suppress the American fire. Bullets shred leaves, bark explodes from tree trunks, and Private John Lorraine takes a ricochet fragment in the shoulder. Not serious, not disabling, but his blood is the first drawn. Winters sees him flinch, sees him check the wound, sees him keep shooting. That's training too. Pain is temporary. Mission is everything. The indoctrination runs deep. Guarnere reaches the flank position, 15 feet from the gun emplacement, close enough to hear Germans shouting to each other in commands he doesn't understand. He signals Toye and Tipper, grenades. They pull pins simultaneously, the distinctive ping of the safety lever releasing. Guarnere counts, 1001, 1002, 1003. Then he throws. The grenades arc through air, disappearing over the earthen berm into the gun position. For one suspended second, nothing happens. Then the double concussion, boom, boom, overlapping explosions that kick up smoke and dirt, and something red that Winters refuses to name. The screaming starts immediately. Not American screaming, but German. The universal sound of men in sudden catastrophic pain. Guarnere doesn't wait. He's over the berm in seconds. Thompson, submachine gun leading, Toye and Tipper behind him. What happens in the next 15 seconds exists in fragments of later testimony. Guarnere fires a burst at a German soldier trying to unsling a rifle. The man goes down. Toye shoots another who emerges from smoke, hands raised in surrender or shock, impossible to know which. Tipper stumbles over a body, nearly falls, catches himself. Then it's over. 5 German soldiers are dead or dying. The gun is theirs. Winters sprints forward during the confusion, the rest of Easy Company behind him. They reach the gun position in 20 seconds. The scene is carnage, bodies, blood, the sharp acrid smell of cordite mixed with something worse. One German soldier is still alive, gut shot, making sounds no human should make. Sergeant Lipton kneels beside him, trying to apply first aid, despite the man being an enemy, because some things transcend war. The German dies anyway, in a Norman orchard, surrounded by strangers, far from home. War is like that. Impersonal, brutal, final. The 105mm howitzer sits in its firing position, still warm from recent use. Brass shell casings litter the ground, evidence that this gun was actively engaged minutes before the assault. Winters examines the ammunition storage, wooden crates stacked carefully, each holding shells that would have killed Americans on Utah Beach. He makes a quick calculation: destroy the gun permanently. They use a thermite grenade, a specialized incendiary that burns at 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt steel. The grenade detonates with a whoosh, white-hot flame consuming the gun's breech mechanism. The weapon glows orange, then red, then begins to sag as critical parts melt into useless slag. One gun neutralized, but the victory tastes like ash in Winters' mouth. They've been firing for maybe 90 seconds. The other 3 gun positions, wherever they are, now know Americans are here. Surprise is gone. The Germans will be reinforcing, preparing, possibly calling for support from other units. Winters' small force has maybe 5 minutes before they face counterattack or concentrated fire from multiple positions. He makes the hasty calculation every combat leader must make: consolidate here and defend, or press the attack while momentum exists. The tactical manual would say consolidate. Winters decides to attack. Not because it's smart, because stopping means the other guns keep firing at Utah Beach, and that's unacceptable. Private Joe Toye discovers the communication trench, a narrow ditch 6 feet deep, running from the gun position toward the next position 50 meters away. It's perfectly engineered, with wooden duckboards on the floor and firing steps cut into the sides. This isn't improvised defense. This is professional military engineering, probably constructed over several days or weeks before D-Day. The realization hits Winters like cold water. The Germans expected to defend this position. They prepared for it, which means the next 3 guns won't be easier. They'll be harder. The communication trench runs straight as a ruler, disappearing into the orchard's green shadows. Sergeant Carwood Lipton crouches in the trench, studying its construction with the eye of someone who's trained on military engineering. The walls are vertical, precisely cut, reinforced with wooden stakes. The floor has duckboards, slatted wood platforms that keep feet out of mud. Every 10 meters, there's a firing step cut into the wall, creating positions where defenders can shoot at attackers while remaining in cover. This isn't the hasty fieldwork of troops preparing for battle. This is deliberate engineering, the kind that takes days of labor by men who knew exactly what they were building. Following the trench 20 meters, Lipton discovers something worse. Overhead cover, logs and earth, creating a roof that would stop shrapnel and small arms fire. The trench isn't just a communication route, it's a fighting position, a covered approach, a highway for defenders to move between gun positions without exposure to American fire. He calls Winters forward. Together they study the implications. If Germans can move through these trenches, they can reinforce any threatened gun position within 60 seconds. Attacking one gun doesn't just mean fighting that gun's defenders. It means potentially fighting defenders from all 4 guns simultaneously. The tactical problem just became exponentially harder. They find the German tactical maps in the first gun's command dugout, a small covered pit containing a field telephone, maps, and personal effects. The maps are revelatory. Every gun position is marked with precise coordinates. Pre-plotted firing solutions show targeting data for Utah Beach, for major road intersections, for likely assembly areas. The Germans knew exactly where to aim before firing a single shell. More chilling, the maps show interlocking fields of fire for the machine gun positions. 3 MG-42s are plotted to create overlapping sectors where any approach to the guns would face fire from multiple angles. This isn't random placement. This is Wehrmacht doctrine executed by professionals who understand their craft. Lieutenant Winters spreads the captured map on the ground, trying to decipher German military symbols. The battery configuration becomes clear. 4 guns arranged in a diamond pattern, 50 meters between positions, with a command post bunker 50 meters behind the center of the formation. Each gun position has its own fighting position, with ammunition storage, overhead cover, and communication trench access. The machine gun positions, marked with distinctive symbols, sit at the corners and center, creating 5 interlocking zones of fire. Any American assault on the remaining guns will have to cross at least 2 machine gun sectors. The Germans built a killing machine, and Easy Company just walked into it. The comparison to American artillery doctrine is instructive. United States Army field manuals call for dispersed gun positions, spreading howitzers across hundreds of yards to prevent a single enemy strike from destroying multiple guns. The thinking emphasizes survival. If artillery is targeted by counter-battery fire, dispersal ensures some guns survive. The German approach prioritizes mutual support over dispersal. Their guns are close enough to defend each other, close enough for crews to reinforce threatened positions, close enough for centralized command and control. It's a different philosophy, accept the risk of concentration for the benefit of integrated defense. Winters realizes he's facing not just German soldiers, but German military theory refined through 5 years of war. Private Popeye Wynne spots the 5th position through a gap in the camouflage netting, a bunker, half buried, with a distinctive antenna mast visible above the roof, the command post. From that position, a German officer would coordinate all 4 guns, receiving fire missions from forward observers or higher headquarters, calculating firing solutions, directing ammunition expenditure. The bunker explains the accuracy that American soldiers reported from the beach. These weren't guns firing randomly. These were guns under professional fire direction, with spotters reporting fall of shot, with corrections applied in real time. The kind of accurate artillery fire that turns beaches into graveyards. The discovered MG-42 positions complete the picture of professional defense. The MG-42 is perhaps the finest machine gun of World War II, 1,200 rounds per minute cyclic rate, effective range of 1,000 meters, quick change barrel allowing sustained fire without overheating. German infantry doctrine builds everything around the machine gun. While American doctrine centers on the rifle squad, German doctrine centers on the machine gun team. Infantry exists to support the machine gun. The machine gun creates the killing zone. Everything else is detail. 3 MG-42s positioned to interlock their fires can turn 200 square meters into a death trap where nothing moves and nothing survives. Winters studies the sight picture from the German perspective. From the gun positions, they have perfect observation of the approach routes Easy Company used. They watched Americans advance across the open field. They watched them reach the tree line. They probably watched Guarnere's flanking movement. The Germans chose not to fire immediately, allowing Americans to come closer, preparing a more decisive engagement. That first gun fell not because of American tactical brilliance, but because of German tactical patience that almost worked. If the grenades had landed 5 feet farther away, if the German defenders had reacted 2 seconds faster, Guarnere's team would be dead and the assault would have failed. The realization of what they're facing settles on the Easy Company men like fog. This isn't going to be a simple assault on isolated artillery pieces. This is going to be a sustained fight against a prepared defense designed by professional soldiers who understand their business. The numerical disadvantage, 12 Americans against an estimated 50 Germans, is actually worse when you account for the defensive advantages. Military theory says attackers need 3-to-1 advantage against prepared defenses. Easy Company is attacking at 1-to-4 disadvantage. The mathematics of combat suggests this shouldn't work. But mathematics don't account for everything. The Germans prepared for conventional attack, for American infantry advancing with armor support, with artillery preparation, with overwhelming firepower. They didn't prepare for 13 paratroopers armed with rifles and grenades conducting what amounts to a raid. The German positions are mutually supporting, but mutual support requires communication and coordination. The field telephone in the first gun position is dead, line cut, either by preparatory bombing or by accident. The radio in the command post might still work, but radio discipline takes time. The Germans have advantages, but they're also discovering that their prepared defense has gaps. War is like that. Every plan has holes. The question is whether the attacker finds them before dying. Winters makes the critical assessment that will determine whether Easy Company survives the next hour. The German position is strong, but not impregnable. The communication trenches work both ways. Americans can use them too. The overhead cover that protects German movement also restricts their ability to observe flanking approaches. The interlocking machine gun fire is devastating in the open, but less effective in the close terrain of the orchard, where hedgerows and trees break line of sight. Most critically, the Germans expected to fight from prepared positions, not to be assaulted in those positions. Defenders have mental advantage in static warfare, but attackers who close distance create chaos that negates preparation. If Easy Company can get close, if they can turn this into a close quarters fight in the trenches and gun pits, they might survive. They might even win. 10-15 hours. The modern battlefield depends on communication, radios linking platoons to companies, companies to battalions, battalions to division. When communication fails, war reverts to something older, more primitive, more dependent on individual initiative and luck. Private First Class James Alley, Easy Company's radio operator, delivers the news that Lieutenant Winters already suspected. The SCR 300 radio is destroyed. The fall during his parachute landing cracked the crystal oscillator, the delicate component that generates radio frequencies. Without it, the radio is 40 pounds of useless metal and wire. Easy Company is deaf and mute to battalion headquarters, to supporting units, to the larger battle. Captain Clarence Hester stands in his command post 2,000 meters away, studying a map marked with known positions. He can hear gunfire from the direction of Brécourt Manor, sporadic rifle fire, the distinctive crack of grenades, the occasional burst of machine gun fire. But hearing combat and knowing its outcome are entirely different things. Is Winters' assault succeeding? Are they pinned down? Are they dead? The questions pile up with no answers. Standard procedure would be to wait for radio contact, but standard procedure assumes radios work, assumes communication happens, assumes commanders have information on which to base decisions. None of those assumptions apply now. The fog of war isn't just confusion about enemy positions. It's the agonizing uncertainty about your own forces when communication fails. Hester knows he sent Winters with approximately 12 men against an estimated 50 Germans defending 4 artillery pieces. He knows that's a suicide mission by conventional calculations. He also knows those guns have been firing at Utah Beach all morning, killing Americans, threatening the entire invasion's timeline. The mission had to happen. But did it succeed? The gunfire from Brécourt's direction could mean anything. It could mean Easy Company is winning. It could mean they're being slaughtered. Sound alone reveals nothing. The decision to send a runner comes at 10:18 hours. Private Lester Hashey volunteers, a 19-year-old from Pennsylvania who jumped with Headquarters Company and has spent the morning carrying messages between scattered units. The mission is simple in concept, suicidal in execution. Run 800 meters across hedgerow country, controlled by German snipers and scattered defenders, locate Lieutenant Winters, get a status report, return with information. The odds of surviving this mission aren't good. German snipers have been killing American runners all morning. But without information, Hester is commanding blind, and commanding blind gets entire companies killed. Hashi departs at 10:20 hours, sprinting from hedgerow to hedgerow, using covered routes where possible, accepting exposure when necessary. The German snipers are active, single cracks of rifle fire from unknown positions, bullets that snap past close enough to feel the displacement of air. He makes the 800 meters in 12 minutes, arriving at Easy Company's position breathless, terrified, and miraculously unhit. Winters receives him in the captured first gun position, surrounded by the evidence of combat. Spent brass, blood-stained earth, the destroyed howitzer still radiating heat from the thermite grenade. Hashi delivers Hester's question. What is your status? Winters' reply is characteristic, terse, tactical, honest. 1 gun destroyed, 3 guns remaining, 2 wounded, 1 killed. Need more men. He writes it on a scrap of paper torn from a German logbook because verbal messages get garbled in transmission. The written word has permanence, clarity, weight. Hashi reads it, nods, and begins the return journey. That 800-meter run back to battalion headquarters takes 15 minutes this time. Hashi is exhausted, moving slower, taking fewer risks. A German sniper's bullet passes so close it tears his jacket collar, but he makes it, delivering Winters' message at 10:53 hours. Hester reads the message 3 times. 1 gun destroyed means the assault isn't a complete failure. 3 guns remaining means the mission isn't complete. 2's wounded, 1 killed means Easy Company is paying the price in blood. Need more men is the critical phrase. Winters isn't asking, he's stating the minimum requirement for success. Hester does the calculation that every commander must do. Where can I find men, and what do I risk by pulling them from other missions? Dog Company is engaged in Sainte-Marie-du-Mont, but has suffered casualties and has men in reserve. He can spare a squad, maybe 12 men. It's not enough, but it's what exists. The time lag between message and response is the killer. From the moment Hashi left Winters at 10:25 to the moment reinforcements can arrive will be at least 40 minutes. 40 minutes is an eternity in combat. 40 minutes is enough time for Germans to counterattack, to reinforce, to shift forces from other positions. 40 minutes is enough time for Easy Company to be overrun, destroyed, scattered. The friction of war, the difference between plans and reality, manifests in these dead spaces when nothing happens and everything could be happening. Hester can only wait, hope, and trust that Winters is good enough to survive. Lieutenant Ronald Spires receives orders at 1100 hours. Take 12 men from Dog Company, proceed to Brécourt Manor, reinforce Lieutenant Winters' assault. Spires is 24 years old, a Scots immigrant who joined the army in 1942 and proved to be exactly what paratroopers needed: competent, fearless to the point of recklessness, and absolutely indifferent to death. There are rumors about Spires already circulating through the regiment. Rumors that he shot German prisoners on D-Day. Rumors that he killed a sergeant who defied orders. Rumors that he's crazy, psychotic, dangerous to friend and enemy alike. Most of the rumors are false. Some might be true. No one asks directly. Spires assembles his team with characteristic efficiency. He takes men who are available and functional. Paratroopers are sorted into 2 categories by mid-morning D-Day: those who can fight and those who can't. Wounded men can't fight. Men with broken weapons can't fight. Men who are scattered and lost can't fight. Spires takes the 12 who have weapons, ammunition, and the ability to follow orders. He briefs them in 90 seconds. Easy Company is assaulting German artillery. They need support. We're going there now. Bring all the ammunition you can carry. One man, Private Joe Toye, volunteers to carry the bazooka, the M9A1 anti-tank rocket launcher, 9 pounds of tube, and 5 pounds per rocket. 6 rockets total. It might matter. The movement to Brécourt takes 23 minutes. Dog Company uses the same route Easy Company used hours earlier, across the open field, into the tree line, toward the sounds of sporadic gunfire. But the battlefield has changed. German fire is more organized now, more directed. The defenders know Americans are in the area and are alert for reinforcement. Spires' team takes fire twice during approach. machine gun bursts that force them to ground, to wait, to move during lulls. By the time they reach Winters's position at 11:24 hours, they're down one man. Private Robert Van Klinken shot through the leg, evacuated back towards Battalion Aid Station. Winters greets Spears in the communication trench connecting the captured first gun to the rest of the German position. The meeting is brief, professional, free of sentiment. Winters explains the tactical situation. 4 guns in diamond formation, 1 destroyed, 3 remaining. Estimated 40 to 50 Germans defending the other positions. Communication trenches connect to everything. Machine guns provide interlocking fire. Need to assault guns 2 and 3 simultaneously to prevent mutual support. Spears listens, asks 3 questions about ammunition status and German activity, then nods agreement. The planning is done. The attack will happen soon. Men check weapons, redistribute ammunition, make the small preparations that separate living from dying. The reinforcement brings Easy Company's strength to 24 men, still outnumbered by Germans at least 2 to 1, still facing prepared defenses, still attacking with inadequate support. But 24 is better than 12. 24 allows for maneuver, for suppression, for the coordination that makes assaults possible. Most critically, Spears brought the bazooka. That 2.36-inch rocket launcher is designed for anti-tank work, but it's devastating against bunkers and fortified positions. 1 rocket into a machine gun nest solves problems that rifle fire cannot. The bazooka might be the difference between success and failure. 11:42 hours, the force that will assault the 2nd and 3rd German gun positions gathers in the captured trenches, 24 men preparing for coordinated violence. Lieutenant Ronald Spears moves among Dog Company soldiers, checking equipment with the detachment of someone inspecting tools before a job. He notes Private Joe Toye's bazooka, the 6 rockets secured in a canvas bag, the bulky weapon that makes Toye slower but deadlier. He counts rifle ammunition. Dog Company brought approximately 600 additional rounds, enough to sustain maybe 15 minutes of intense combat. Grenades, 7 more fragmentation grenades, the small green spheres that kill at 5 meters and wound at 15. It's not abundance, but it's more than Easy Company had when this began. Winters briefs the combined force with the calm precision that defines his leadership style. No dramatics, no speeches about duty or patriotism. Just facts. Gun number 2 is 50 meters northwest. Gun number 3 is 50 meters southwest, both connected by communication trenches to the position we now hold. Plan: simultaneous assault. Winters takes Easy Company against Gun 2. Spears takes Dog Company against Gun 3. Attack begins when the bazooka fires at the nearest machine gun position, creating confusion and suppressing German fire. Both teams advance during the chaos, using fire and movement, grenades when in range, assault when close enough. Objective: destroy both guns before Germans can organize counterattack or reinforce from gun number 4. The reputation that precedes Spears manifests in how men react to him. There's no warmth in their interactions, no camaraderie of the type that binds Easy Company together. Dog Company soldiers follow Spears because he's competent and because disobeying seems more dangerous than attacking Germans. Easy Company soldiers regard him with wary respect. He's the officer who does what's necessary without hesitation or doubt. The rumors about shooting prisoners create distance. War requires controlled aggression. Spears seems to have aggression without the control, or perhaps perfect control applied to perfectly ruthless ends. It's unsettling. It's also exactly what this situation requires. Private Joe Toye positions himself at a gap in the hedgerow, bazooka loaded with a high explosive anti-tank rocket. The target is 90 meters distant, a machine gun position partially visible through foliage, marked by sandbags and the distinctive barrel shape of an MG-42. The bazooka's effective range is 120 meters against fortifications, so 90 meters is well within capability, but accuracy depends on the shooter compensating for the rocket's curved trajectory. Toye sights carefully, accounting for the weapon's peculiarities. The bazooka is a terrible weapon in many ways, bulky, conspicuous, temperamental, but against bunkers and fortified positions, it's irreplaceable. 1 rocket can do what 100 rifle bullets cannot. The attack signal is the bazooka's distinctive whoosh bang. Toye fires at 11:47 hours. The rocket's backblast kicks up dust and leaves, the trail of propellant gases making a visible line through air. Flight time to target, 0.8 seconds. The rocket impacts directly on the sandbag position, detonating with a crack that's felt as much as heard. The result is immediate and catastrophic for the defenders. The machine gun is destroyed or disabled. At least one German soldier is killed by the blast. The others are stunned, deafened, in shock. For maybe 10 seconds, that entire sector of the German defense is blind and silent. 10 seconds isn't much. It's enough. Winters moves first, Easy Company behind him. They sprint from the cover of the first gun position toward gun number 2, using a covered approach through a shallow drainage ditch. The Germans are shooting now, rifle fire cracking out, but unaimed, panicked, the fire of men who are reacting rather than fighting. Bullets snap overhead, impact around them, but the volume of fire is low. Most Germans are in cover, uncertain about American positions, waiting for officers to organize response. That organizational delay is the window. Winters knows they have maybe 30 seconds before the defense coheres. They cross 40 meters in 15 seconds. Spears attacks from different angle, Dog Company using the communication trench to approach gun number 3 from the south, while German attention focuses on Winters' assault to the north. It's the oldest tactical maneuver in warfare, fix and flank. Pin the enemy's attention in one direction while hitting from another. The communication trench that Germans built for their own use becomes the avenue of their destruction. Spears moves fast, Thompson submachine gun ready, his men following in single file through the narrow trench. They cover 30 meters before encountering German defenders. 3 soldiers in the trench, surprised, weapons not ready. The fight is over in seconds, brutal and close. Coordination without radio communication depends on timing, on trusting that the other assault team is doing what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. Winters can't see Spears' assault. Spears can't see Winters. Each must trust the other is moving, attacking, executing as planned. That trust is hard won in training, tested in combat. If either assault fails, the other becomes exposed to concentrated German fire. If both succeed, the German defense collapses. The margin between success and catastrophic failure is measured in seconds and meters. Private Popeye Wynne provides suppressive fire from the first gun position, his Browning automatic rifle sending 20-round bursts toward German positions. The bar's purpose isn't to kill, though it might, but to make Germans keep their heads down, to create noise and chaos that aids the assault teams. Wynne fires in bursts, 4-round bursts instead of sustained fire, conserving ammunition because the BAR chews through it at terrifying rate. Each burst gives the assault teams a few more seconds of reduced enemy fire. In aggregate, those seconds matter. The critical moment comes at 11:49 hours. Winters' team reaches assault range on gun number 2, close enough to throw grenades, close enough to see individual German soldiers. He counts. 6 Germans visible, probably more in cover. The gun itself sits in a prepared pit, earthen walls providing protection on 3 sides, overhead netting giving concealment from air observation. Ammunition crates are stacked neatly. The howitzer is oriented toward the north, toward Utah Beach, ready to fire. In different circumstances, it would be impressive, professional military engineering, well executed. In these circumstances, it's just a target. Grenades are the close combat soldiers' artillery. Sergeant Bill Guarneri throws first, arcing a fragmentation grenade into the gun pit from 15 meters. Private Buck Compton throws second. The explosions come 2 seconds apart, double concussion, smoke, the screams that mean the grenades found targets. Then it's into the pit, rifles firing, bayonets fixed for close work that hopefully won't be necessary. 3 German soldiers are down, dead or wounded. 2 more surrender immediately, hands raised, shouting words Winters doesn't understand, but whose meaning is universal. 1 fights, bringing his rifle up, and Private Carwood Lipton shoots him twice. Center mass. The German falls. The gun position is theirs. Spears' assault on gun number 3 happens simultaneously, a parallel narrative of violence 50 meters away. The resistance is different, lighter, less organized. Spears later reports the position was partially abandoned when his team arrived, with warm coffee and food indicating Germans fled just minutes before. But fled toward where? That's the question that will matter soon. Fleeing Germans don't disappear. They regroup. They reinforce other positions. They prepare counterattacks. The temporary tactical success might be setting up strategic failure. Lieutenant Winters stands in the captured second gun position, breathing hard, hands shaking from adrenaline, doing the mental calculation every combat leader must do: cost versus gain. Easy Company now has 2 guns destroyed, 1 wounded in this assault. Private John Hall, machine gun bullet through the calf. Painful, but not life-threatening. Total casualties for the entire action: 1 killed, 3 wounded. Not good, but not catastrophic. 2 guns destroyed out of 4. 50% of the objective. The mathematics suggests success, but 2 guns remain, and the Germans now know exactly where the Americans are and what they're doing. The element of surprise that made the first assaults possible is gone. 11:04 hours, 20 minutes before the coordinated assault. The morning has acquired the surreal quality that combat veterans recognize: heightened awareness combined with time distortion, where seconds stretch like hours and hours compress into moments. Lieutenant Richard Winters studies the approach to gun number 2, calculating angles and distances with the part of his brain that stayed awake at Fort Benning during infantry tactics classes while his body wanted sleep. 47 meters from covered position to the gun pit. 47 meters of open ground crossed under fire. The mathematics of survival depend on speed, suppression, and luck, 3 variables, 2 under his control. The assault team is smaller now: Winters, Private Buck Compton, Private Carwood Lipton, Sergeant Bill Guarnere, Private John Lorraine. 5 men to assault a position defended by an estimated 8 to 10 Germans. Standard doctrine says this shouldn't work, but standard doctrine was written by people who had time, support, and adequate forces. Standard doctrine doesn't account for situations where inadequate forces are the only forces available. Winters briefs his team using the mud sketch method. Here's the gun, here's the approach route, here's where suppressive fire comes from, here's where we throw grenades. Questions? No questions. They've done this before, 40 minutes ago, on gun number 1. Repetition creates false confidence. Combat is never the same twice. The machine gun that kills Private William Dukeman fires from a position Winters didn't know existed. It's the eternal problem of infantry combat. You cannot see everything, cannot know everything, cannot account for every enemy position. Reconnaissance is always incomplete. Intelligence is always wrong. The machine gun is positioned 30 meters to the left of gun number 2, camouflaged so well that aerial photography missed it, and visual observation from Easy Company's position failed to spot it. It's probably an MG-34, older than the MG-42, but just as deadly. 900 rounds per minute cyclic rate, effective to 1,000 meters. Against exposed infantry at 50 meters, it's absolutely lethal. Dukeman is 22 years old, from Pennsylvania, a replacement who joined Easy Company in England after original members were siphoned off to fill other units. He's running third in the assault line when the machine gun opens fire. The burst is short, professional, controlled. 6 or 7 rounds, no more. 4 miss. 2 hit Dukeman in the head and upper chest. Death is instantaneous, perhaps merciful in that way. He doesn't feel pain, doesn't have time to understand what happened, doesn't experience the terror of dying slowly. He's running, and then he's not, a body falling forward into Norman earth, while his brain ceases function before his heart stops beating. The sound is the distinctive crack of supersonic bullets hitting flesh. Not Hollywood's dramatic impact, but something wet and final. The tactical decision Winters makes in the next 3 seconds defines leadership under fire. Standard response to ambush is to take cover, suppress the ambush position, maneuver carefully. That keeps soldiers alive, but taking cover here means stopping in the open, presenting static targets for the machine gun to systematically destroy. The counterintuitive response, the one that violates every self-preservation instinct, is to run forward, closing distance to the machine gun, getting inside its effective engagement range where the gunner can't track fast-moving targets. Winters chooses forward. He screams one word, "Move!" Then he runs toward the machine gun. Private Popeye Wynn is hit 3 seconds later. The same machine gun, different burst. The bullet enters Wynn's left shoulder, exits near the clavicle, missing major arteries by millimeters. He goes down hard, the impact spinning him, his Browning automatic rifle clattering on the ground. Blood wells up immediately. Bright arterial red that means serious but possibly survivable if treated quickly. Wynn is conscious, screaming, clutching the wound with his right hand. Sergeant Lipton breaks from the assault line, dragging wind toward cover while bullets snap past. It's instinct, training, humanity, all the things that make soldiers more than machines. It's also tactically questionable. Stopping to save one man risks the mission that might save hundreds. Buck Compton reaches the machine gun position 10 seconds after the firing started. He comes at it from an angle the gunner didn't anticipate, emerging from dead space where the weapon cannot depress low enough to engage. The German machine gunner is good. He's firing in controlled bursts, conserving ammunition, traversing to engage multiple targets. But he's focused on the main assault line, expecting Americans to come from one direction. Compton appears from another, 3 meters away, too close for the machine gun to engage. The fight is settled with a grenade and 3 rifle shots. The machine gun goes silent. Winters reaches gun number 2's defensive perimeter at 11:06, lungs burning, bomb burn, uniform soaked with sweat despite the cool morning. 6 German soldiers are visible, 3 in the gun pit operating the howitzer, 3 in nearby fighting positions providing security. They're alert now, weapons ready, but they're confused about where the threat is coming from. American fire is impacting from multiple directions. The bazooka rocket hit machine gun position 30 seconds ago. Rifle fire is coming from the tree line. Grenades are detonating somewhere to the south, where Speer's team is assaulting. The German response is fragmented, localized, uncoordinated. Each position fights its own battle without unity of command. The assault into gun position 2 is violence reduced to basics. Winters and Guarnere reach the edge of the pit simultaneously. They don't pause, don't offer surrender opportunities, don't hesitate. Hesitation gets you killed. 2 grenades arc into the pit. Distinctive pull pin and throw motion, repeated thousands of times in training. The German crew has 3 seconds to react. 1 throws himself flat. 1 tries to run, 1 freezes. The grenades detonate with overlapping concussions, metal fragments expanding at supersonic speed, tearing through flesh and equipment. Then Winters is in the pit, rifle up, shooting at movement. Guarnere beside him, Thompson firing in short bursts. The sound is overwhelming, gunfire echoing in the confined space, brass casings bouncing off earthen walls, shouting in English and German. The fight lasts 15 seconds. When it's over, 3 German soldiers are dead, 2 are wounded, 1 has escaped through the communication trench. Winters' ears are ringing from gunfire at close range. His hands are shaking, adrenaline crash, beginning even while threat remains. The 105mm howitzer sits intact in its firing position, surrounded by brass shell casings from recent firing. A German soldier, dead now, lies across the trail, blood pooling beneath him. The ammunition ready rack holds 12 high-explosive shells. In different circumstances, those shells would have killed Americans on Utah Beach. In these circumstances, they represent only potential energy that will never be realized. Destroying the gun is mechanical ritual by this point. Thermite grenade placed on the breech mechanism. Pin pulled. Bright white ignition as magnesium burns at temperatures that turn steel into slag. The howitzer's barrel begins to glow, first red, then orange, then a color beyond orange that's painful to observe directly. Critical parts melt, fuse together, become geometrically unable to chamber rounds or contain firing pressure. The gun is now 4,400 pounds of scrap metal. It will never fire again. 2 guns destroyed, 2 guns remaining. But the cost is rising. Private William Dukeman's body lies 30 meters away, face down, absolutely still. Winters walks to it, kneels, turns Dukeman over. The head wound is catastrophic, not something to describe, not something to dwell on. Winters removes Dukeman's identification tags, following the protocol. 1 tag stays with the body, 1 tag goes to the commanding officer for casualty reporting. The metal is warm from Dukeman's body heat. Later, hours later, maybe days later, Winters will write a letter to Dukeman's family in Pennsylvania. He'll struggle to find words that aren't platitudes, that acknowledge their son died in a Norman orchard, fighting for 4 artillery pieces that most Americans will never hear about. The letter will be inadequate. All such letters are inadequate. The hollow victory of gun number 2 settles on Easy Company like weight. They're succeeding. 2 guns destroyed out of 4. The mission is 50% complete. But success measured in percentages feels obscene when measured against Dukeman's corpse. War forces the calculation. Was this gun worth 1 American life? Military logic says yes. Artillery silenced saves hundreds of lives on Utah Beach. The mathematics are clear. Human logic recoils from the calculus, refuses to weigh lives on scales, rejects the premise that some deaths purchase other lives. Winter's lives in both logics simultaneously. It's the burden of command. You must calculate, and you must care, and you must continue. 11:19 hours. While Lieutenant Richard Winter's team assaults gun number 2 from the north, Lieutenant Ronald Spears approaches gun number 3 from the south using the communication trench Germans built for their own security. War is ironic that way. The tools of defense become instruments of attack. The prepared positions become traps for their designers. Spears moves with the economy of motion that characterizes professional violence. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Thompson's submachine gun held ready, finger outside the trigger guard until target's present, then inside, then firing in controlled bursts. Behind him, 11 Dog Company soldiers follow in single file, trusting their lieutenant's competence if not his humanity. The communication trench runs for 42 meters before opening into gun position, 3's defensive works. Spears expects resistance, guards posted at the trench entrance, prepared firing positions, the kind of security that military professionalism demands. What he finds instead is abandonment. The gun position's fighting trenches are empty. Rifle stands hold weapons but no soldiers. An ammunition detail is partially unpacked, shells removed from crates but not distributed to ready racks. Most telling, mugs of coffee sit on the firing step, still warm enough to steam slightly in the cool morning air. The Germans were here minutes ago. Then they left. The evidence of hasty departure accumulates quickly. Personal items scattered, cigarettes, letters from home, a photograph of someone's family lying in mud, equipment left behind, gas masks, entrenching tools, spare ammunition. The gun itself sits perfectly intact, properly maintained, ready to fire, but the crew is gone. Spears makes the tactical assessment. The Germans heard or saw the assault on gun number 2, understood Americans were breaching their perimeter, and chose tactical withdrawal over futile last stand. It's the smart play. Live to fight from better positions, rather than die defending ground you can't hold. Professional soldiers know when to retreat, but retreated to where? That's the question that transforms tactical success into potential strategic disaster. Spears studies the terrain, traces likely withdrawal routes. The communication trenches run in multiple directions, toward gun position 4, toward the command bunker, toward rally points that might exist behind the German lines. 15 to 20 German soldiers didn't evaporate. They're somewhere close, probably reforming, possibly preparing counterattack. The abandoned position is a gift, but gifts in warfare often conceal costs. Spears makes the decision that defines his reputation. Don't destroy the gun yet. Use it as bait. The ambush takes 7 minutes to prepare. Spears positions his men in the trenches surrounding the gun, creating interlocking fields of fire that cover all approaches. The Germans built these positions for defense in one direction, against attack from the north, from Utah Beach, from where they expected American assault. Spears uses the positions in reverse, defending against attack from the south, from where fleeing Germans might return. It's improvised, hasty, not the product of careful planning. But warfare is usually improvised. The careful plans rarely survive first contact with chaos. The German counterattack comes at 11:26 hours, 12 soldiers advancing in a skirmish, line from the direction of gun position 4, attempting to retake the position they abandoned. They move tactically, using covered approaches, weapons ready, but they're not expecting Americans to already be in the trenches, not expecting the position to be occupied and fortified. The assumption kills them. They advance to within 20 meters before Spears gives the signal to fire. 11 Dog Company rifles open simultaneously. The range is point blank. The outcome is predetermined. The firefight lasts 18 seconds. From first shot to last shot, 18 seconds of concentrated violence that leaves 11 Germans dead or dying and 1 wounded. 0 American casualties. It's not heroism, it's geometry. The Germans advanced across open ground toward fortified positions occupied by soldiers they didn't know were there. Elementary tactics dictate the result. Spears doesn't celebrate, doesn't express satisfaction, doesn't acknowledge that his decision to use the position as bait worked perfectly. He simply orders the gun destroyed. Thermite grenade on the breech, white-hot combustion, another howitzer reduced to scrap. The wounded German soldier presents a problem that reveals character. He's gut-shot, the worst kind of wound, survivable with immediate surgery and antibiotics, eventually fatal without them. He's maybe 19 years old, crying for his mother in German, in that universal language of pain that transcends sides and politics. Spears could shoot him, a single bullet would end suffering and eliminate a witness. The rumors suggest he's done this before, that he solves inconvenient problems with expedient violence. His men watch to see what he does. Spears kneels beside the wounded German, checking the wound with hands that know battlefield medicine. He administers morphine from the soldier's own aid kit, the small syringe of pain relief that every soldier carries. He applies bandages, useless against damage this severe but psychologically important. He speaks in English the soldier probably doesn't understand. Medic will come. You'll be okay. It's a lie. The medic might not come. The soldier probably won't be okay. But it's a kind lie, the kind that acknowledges shared humanity, even in circumstances designed to eliminate it. Spears leaves the German soldier propped against the earthen wall, conscious but drifting on morphine, waiting for evacuation that might arrive or might not. The intelligence from the dying German, extracted through a French civilian interpreter who appears from a nearby farm, provides critical information. Approximately 40 more German soldiers are positioned at gun number 4 and the command bunker. They're from 1st Battery, 191st Artillery Regiment, 91st Infantry Division. They've been at Brécourt Manor for 4 days. They're tired, low on supplies, demoralized by Allied air superiority that makes movement during daylight suicidal. They expected to be rotated off the line before the invasion. That rotation never came. Now they're fighting because fighting is the only option remaining. The tactical picture clarifies. Easy Company and Dog Company are engaging not random defenders, but a specific unit with specific capabilities and specific limitations. The 91st Infantry Division is a static defense division, Category 4 troops in Wehrmacht classification, meaning limited mobility, older soldiers, troops recovering from wounds on the Eastern Front. These aren't elite SS troops or fresh recruits. They're veterans who've seen too much combat, who know how wars end for the German Reich in 1944, who understand they're defending a lost cause. That knowledge makes them less fanatical, but also more dangerous in specific ways. They won't die for Hitler, but they'll fight competently to survive. Speer's reputation solidifies during this action. His men witness efficiency that borders on mechanical. 11 enemy soldiers killed in 18 seconds with 0 friendly casualties. That's not luck. That's tactical competence applied ruthlessly. The rumor about shooting prisoners remains unconfirmed, but also undenied. Speers doesn't defend himself, doesn't explain, doesn't engage with questions about his methods or his character. He simply executes the mission with the minimum necessary force, then prepares for the next mission. It's unsettling precisely because it's effective. War rewards results. Character is secondary. Lieutenant Winters, consolidating position at gun number 2, hears the sustained gunfire from Speer's position, then silence. He doesn't know what happened. Successful assault, failed assault, ambush, counterattack. Communication remains impossible without working radios. He can only hope Speers accomplished the objective and will link up soon. The uncertainty is corrosive. Combat is rarely the moment of violence. Combat is mostly waiting, wondering, fearing what's happening beyond your limited view. The killing occupies seconds. The uncertainty occupies hours. 11:30 hours. Combat medic Eugene Rowe moves between positions, treating wounded with supplies that diminish with each casualty. The medic's burden is unique. He carries no weapon, marked by Red Cross brassards that Geneva Convention promises will protect him, knowing that promise is frequently violated. His aid kit contains morphine syringes, bandages, sulfa powder to prevent infection, tourniquets for arterial bleeding, primitive tools against industrial violence. He reaches Private Popeye Wynn first, the shoulder wound still bleeding despite Sergeant Lipton's hasty field dressing. Rowe cuts away the uniform, assesses the damage, through and through gunshot wound, missing major blood vessels by less than 1 centimeter. Lucky, survivable, painful. Morphine first, the small tube of synthetic opiate that transforms agony into manageable pain. Rowe breaks the seal, injects into Wynn's thigh muscle, waits 30 seconds for effect. Wynn's screaming diminishes to groaning, then to silence as the drug takes hold. Wound cleaning, water from canteen, sulfa powder to kill bacteria, fresh bandages. The bullet entered cleanly, but exit wounds are always worse. Tissue torn outward by hydrostatic shock, creating cavity wounds that resist closure. Rowe packs the exit wound with gauze, applies pressure dressing, uses Wynn's own rifle sling as improvised support to immobilize the shoulder. Basic field medicine, barely adequate, enough to prevent death, but not enough to prevent suffering. Wynn needs evacuation to Battalion Aid Station, then to Field Hospital, then to England for proper surgery. That evacuation might happen in hours or days. Private John Hall's leg wound is cleaner. Machine gun bullet through the calf muscle, missing bone. Through and through again, less critical than Wynn's shoulder. Hall is conscious, smoking a captured German cigarette, trying to project toughness despite visible pain. Rowe treats him with the same protocol: morphine, cleaning, bandaging. 2 wounded now requiring evacuation. The tactical calculation becomes harder. Every wounded soldier requires 2 healthy soldiers to carry, 1 at shoulders, 1 at legs. Moving 2 wounded means committing 4 soldiers to evacuation duty, reducing combat strength from 24 to 20. Mathematics of attrition. Private William Dukeman's body lies under a shelter half. The canvas rectangle that serves as personal tent, ground cloth, or shroud depending on circumstance. Medics cannot help the dead. Rowe checks anyway, confirming what everyone already knows. No pulse, no respiration. Body temperature dropping toward ambient. Death confirmed. The protocol is simple. Leave the body for graves registration teams who'll arrive hours or days later to process remains, assign casualty number, begin the administrative machinery that transforms Private William Dukeman's soldier into Casualty 197B, deceased June 6, 1944, Normandy, France. The dehumanization is necessary. Armies cannot function if they treat every death as irreplaceable individual loss. The machinery requires reduction of humans to numbers. Lieutenant Winters conducts ammunition count at 11:35 hours. The results are sobering. Started with approximately 800 rifle rounds total across all Easy Company soldiers. Current count, 384 rounds remaining. Carbine ammunition, 217 rounds from original 600. Thompson submachine gun, 93 rounds of .45 caliber. Browning automatic rifle, 112 rounds, but Wynn is wounded and the weapon sits unused. Grenades, 2 fragmentation grenades remaining from original 4. Bazooka, 3 rockets from original 6. Every trigger pull diminishes capability. Every grenade throw reduces options. The mathematics of ammunition expenditure predict failure before mission completion. The tactical problem intensifies when accounting for what remains. 2 gun positions still to assault, numbers 3 and 4 if Spears hasn't already taken number 3. Unknown number of German defenders, conservatively estimated at 40 based on prisoner intelligence. Even if Spears succeeded at gun 3, that leaves 1 gun and perhaps 20 to 30 Germans at position 4 and command bunker. 24 Americans with declining ammunition against 30 Germans in prepared positions. The force ratio is now approaching 1-to-1, which still favors defenders. Standard doctrine requires 3-to-1 advantage for assault. Easy Company is operating at 1/3 of doctrinal requirement and declining. Time pressure compounds every problem. It's been 2 hours 47 minutes since the assault began at 09:47 hours. 2 hours 47 minutes of sustained combat operations without resupply, without reinforcement beyond Spears's 12 men, without rest or food or water. Soldiers are exhausted. Adrenaline crashes creating fatigue worse than physical exertion, stress hormones depleting glucose reserves, dehydration from sweating and breathing hard setting in. Combat effectiveness degrades with fatigue, marksmanship suffers, decision-making slows, tactical mistakes multiply. Every additional minute of operation increases the probability of catastrophic error, but stopping is unacceptable. The German guns remaining at position 4 can still engage Utah Beach. Every minute of delay means potentially more American casualties on the beach. The mission isn't complete until all 4 guns are neutralized. Winters faces the impossible calculation that defines command. Continue with degraded forces and accept casualties, or consolidate and accept mission failure? There's no good answer. Both choices lead to Americans dying. The only question is which Americans, and how many, and whether their deaths purchase anything valuable. The psychological dimension of sustained combat manifests in visible ways. Private Joe Toye's hands shake when he loads his rifle, fine motor control degraded by adrenaline. Buck Compton's eyes have the 1,000-yard stare that combat veterans recognize, consciousness receding from immediate surroundings into internal space where mind processes trauma. Sergeant Bill Guarnere chain smokes captured German cigarettes, burning through tobacco faster than thought, the ritual of lighting and inhaling providing psychological anchor. These are functional soldiers, still capable of fighting, but their effectiveness is diminishing minute by minute. Logistics of evacuation present their own challenges. Wynne and Hall need movement to Battalion Aid Station approximately 2,000 meters northeast. The route crosses open ground, passes through areas not confirmed clear of German forces, requires crossing hedgerows that could conceal ambush positions. Standard procedure: assign 4 soldiers to evacuation duty, maintain security during movement, return to unit once wounded are delivered. But 4 soldiers is 16% of remaining strength. Can the mission continue with 20 soldiers instead of 24? Can it succeed with 24? These questions lack clear answers. The sound of approaching footsteps in the communication trench triggers immediate weapon-ready response. Triggers pulled to half slack. Safeties clicked off. Muzzles oriented toward sound. Friend or enemy? The uncertainty lasts 3 seconds until Lieutenant Spears appears, followed by his dog company soldiers. The relief is physical. Shoulders drop, breathing deepens, weapons lower. Spears reports success. Gun number 3 destroyed. German counterattack repulsed. 11 enemy killed. 1 wounded prisoner. 0 friendly casualties. The news is simultaneously heartening and troubling. 3 guns destroyed out of 4. 1 gun remains. But ammunition is low, soldiers are exhausted, and the final position will be the most heavily defended. Lieutenant Winters and Lieutenant Spears confer in the captured gun position 2, speaking in the shorthand of professional soldiers who understand tactical realities without extensive explanation. Spears: gun 3 destroyed, encountered counterattack. 11 Germans killed. Winters: gun 2 destroyed, 1 killed, 2 wounded on our side, low on ammunition. Spears: same. The exchange conveys everything necessary. Both assaults succeeded, both units paid costs, both are running on fumes. Ammunition, energy, luck. The final assault on gun position 4 will require combining forces, using every remaining soldier, accepting risks that earlier missions avoided. The decision crystallizes: consolidate both units, attack gun position 4 as single coordinated force, then assault command bunker if time and ammunition permit. It's not elegant, it's not creative, it's the application of superior numbers to final objective, the most basic principle of warfare: concentration of force. But even concentrated, Easy Company and Dog Company total only 24 soldiers. If gun position 4 holds 30 defenders, the Americans are still outnumbered. If the command bunker holds additional troops, the situation deteriorates further. The mathematics remain unfavorable. But mathematics aren't destiny. Sometimes audacity overcomes arithmetic. The German documents discovered in captured positions tell a story that aerial reconnaissance and intelligence briefings missed entirely. Lieutenant Winters spreads the artillery battery log on the hood of a destroyed German truck, studying handwritten entries in Gothic script he cannot read. A French civilian from a nearby farm, elderly man who speaks some English, learned during the First World War, provides rough translation. The header reads, 1st Battery, 191st Artillery Regiment, 91st Infantry Division. The unit designation means nothing to Winters until the translator explains. These are static defense troops, older soldiers, veterans withdrawn from the Eastern Front to recover from wounds or exhaustion. The battery log reveals deployment timeline: June 2nd, 1944. Unit arrives at Brécourt Manor, relieving previous garrison. June 3rd. Begin emplacement of 4 105mm howitzers in prepared positions. June 4th. Complete ammunition stockpiling, establish communication trenches, fortify gun positions. June 5th. Conduct test fires. Adjust aiming stakes for pre-plotted targets. June 6th, 0200 hours. Receive alert that Allied invasion is imminent. June 6th, 0600 hours. Commence firing on observed landing craft approaching Utah Beach. The log is meticulous, professional, the work of soldiers who understand their craft. These weren't amateurs. These were competent artillerymen executing doctrine they'd practiced for years. The prisoner interrogation provides human context to documentary evidence. The wounded German soldier from gun position 3, stabilized enough to speak, medicated enough to talk without considering consequences, answers questions through the French interpreter. He's 34 years old, from Bavaria, drafted in 1939, fought in Poland and France, wounded twice on the Eastern Front, assigned to 91st Division for light duty that turned out to be defending Normandy coast. He describes his unit as exhausted, demoralized, expecting rotation away from the coast that never came. When asked about morale, he laughs bitterly. The interpreter translates, "We knew the invasion was coming. We knew we would die. We just didn't know when." The personal items scattered through captured positions provide unexpected intimacy with the enemy. Letters from home, wives writing about children, mothers writing about shortages and bombing raids, girlfriends writing about loneliness, photographs, families in pre-war prosperity, soldiers in earlier wars, children who will grow up fatherless, a harmonica, a small Bible with pressed flowers marking favorite passages, chess pieces carved from wood during long hours of garrison duty. These objects resist military categorization. They're not intelligence, not tactically relevant, not useful for mission planning, but they're profoundly human, reminders that enemies are people with histories and hopes and fears identical to your own. The tactical map found in the command bunker, still incomplete in American possession but visible through binoculars, shows German defensive preparation in detail. Pre-plotted artillery targets include not just Utah Beach, but every likely assembly area, every crossroad, every choke point within 10 kilometers. The Germans knew where Americans would need to go and prepared to kill them there. Fire missions are calculated in advance, written on cards that could be grabbed quickly. Range to target, deflection, elevation, shell type, everything prepared so that calling. Fire required only reporting target number. Professional military efficiency applied to mass killing. The Eastern Front experience that many 91st Division soldiers carried shaped their approach to Normandy defense. Wehrmacht doctrine was refined through 5 years of total war. Poland, France, Balkans, Soviet Union. These soldiers had faced Soviet artillery barrages, Soviet armor assaults, Soviet infantry in numbers that made American forces seem modest by comparison. The defensive positions at Brécourt Manor reflect lessons learned in that crucible. Communication trenches allow rapid reinforcement. Overhead cover protects against artillery and air attack. Interlocking fields of fire ensure no dead space. Ammunition stockpiled for sustained defense. It's doctrine written in blood across the steppes of Russia, now applied to Norman fields. But Eastern Front experience also revealed German limitations. The prisoner explains, unprompted, perhaps seeking to justify survival or perhaps simply exhausted with war, that his unit hasn't seen Luftwaffe aircraft in weeks. Allied air superiority is total, crushing, demoralizing. Every movement during daylight draws fighter-bomber attack. Resupply comes only at night, when available at all. Ammunition is rationed. Food is scarce. Reinforcement is impossible. The Wehrmacht is fighting with one hand tied behind its back, and every soldier knows it. The psychological impact of air supremacy cannot be overstated. When the sky belongs to the enemy, ground forces feel naked, exposed, abandoned. The comparison between American and German doctrine illuminates different military philosophies. American artillery doctrine emphasizes dispersal. Spread guns across wide areas to prevent single enemy strike from destroying multiple weapons. Accept reduced mutual support for improved survivability. German doctrine emphasizes concentration. Cluster guns for mutual support. Accept vulnerability for improved defensive capability. Neither approach is objectively superior. Context determines effectiveness. In situations where counter-battery fire is a serious threat, American dispersal makes sense. In situations where ground assault is primary threat, German concentration makes sense. Brécourt Manor's designers expected air attack and artillery, not infantry assault. Their preparations reflected that assessment. The discovery of the command post bunker's location, 50 meters behind gun position 4, partially underground, reinforced with logs and earth, explains the coordination that made the battery so effective against Utah Beach. Fire direction requires central control. Forward observers report targets. Fire Direction Center calculates firing data. Orders transmit to individual guns. Guns fire. Observers report impact. Corrections apply. The cycle repeats until target is destroyed or suppressed. Without the command post coordinating this process, the guns become independent weapons firing without unity of view. Purpose. With the command post functioning, the battery becomes a system capable of devastating effectiveness. Lieutenant Winters studies the map, the logs, the letters, trying to understand the enemy he's fighting. Humanizing the enemy is dangerous, easier to kill abstractions than people. But understanding the enemy is tactically essential. These German soldiers are tired, undersupplied, demoralized by Allied air power, and defending a coast they know cannot be held. But they're also professional soldiers, executing competent defense with well-prepared positions. They're not going to collapse at first contact. They're going to fight, and some will fight hard, and some will choose death over surrender. The final assault on gun position 4 will require everything Easy Company has remaining. The age difference between American and German soldiers matters more than it might seem. Easy Company averages 23 years old, young men with energy and resilience and the optimism of soldiers who haven't seen enough combat to understand what war actually is. The 91st Division averages 34 years old, men with families and responsibilities, and the pessimism of soldiers who've survived Poland and France and Russia and know exactly what war is. Youth provides physical advantages. Experience provides tactical advantages. The clash between them will determine which advantage matters more in Norman Hedgerows on June 6, 1944. The psychological impact of D-Day on German defenders cannot be separated from larger context. For 5 years, Wehrmacht has been winning. Poland crushed in weeks, France defeated in months, Balkans occupied, Soviet Union invaded with initial success. German soldiers in 1944 remember those victories, even as current reality contradicts them. But Normandy represents something new, fighting on Western Front against enemies with material superiority, so vast it seems almost unfair. Allied air power, Allied artillery, Allied logistics. The sense of inevitable defeat permeates German ranks. Some fight anyway, from duty or fear or habit. Others seek survival. The Brécourt Manor defenders contained both types. 12-15 hours. The combined American force, 24 men from Easy Company and Dog Company, prepares for the final assault. Gun position 4 sits 100 meters south of the captured positions, partially visible through gaps in hedgerows. The command bunker is 50 meters beyond, marked by radio antenna extending above tree line. 8 new reinforcements arrive from battalion, scattered paratroopers who found their way to the fight, bringing the total assault force to 32 men. It's still inadequate by doctrine, but it's the most force that's been concentrated since the action began 3 hours ago. The tactical briefing is Winters' shortest yet. Gun position 4 is the objective. Command bunker is secondary target if possible. Expect heavy resistance, probably 15 to 20 Germans defending the gun, unknown number in bunker. Approach will be through communication trench on the left, an open advance on the right, pincer movement to prevent escape, suppress with rifle fire, assault with grenades, destroy the gun, then reassess. No complicated coordination, no elaborate timing, simple violence applied with maximum available force. The planning reflects exhaustion and ammunition shortage. Fancy tactics require resources they don't have. Private Joe Toye positions himself with the bazooka for final time, 3 rockets remaining. The target is the suspected machine gun position covering the approach to gun 4. Same tactic as before. 1 rocket to suppress defenders, create confusion, open window for assault. But Toye's hands shake more now than 3 hours ago. Fatigue affects accuracy. The bazooka requires steady hands and clear sight picture. Toye takes deep breath, steadies himself against hedgerow, sights carefully. The rocket is their last major advantage. It has to count. The bazooka fires at 12:17 hours. The rocket whooshes out, backblast kicking up dust, flight time 0.9 seconds. Impact on target. The machine gun position erupts in smoke and debris. Direct hit. The MG-42 that was their primary concern is destroyed or disabled. The suppressive advantage lasts maybe 15 seconds. Winters signals, attack. 32 men advance in two groups, one through the communication trench, one across open ground, converging on gun position 4 from different angles. The coordination is rough but effective. Then something unexpected happens. The German defense collapses without fight. The gun position, when reached, is abandoned. Equipment remains, ammunition, personal items, weapons leaning against trench walls, but soldiers are gone. Sergeant Guarnere explores the position cautiously, weapon ready, expecting ambush. Nothing. The Germans fled, not during the assault but before it, evacuating during the bazooka preparation, choosing survival over futile last stand. Professional soldiers know when defense becomes suicide. The Wehrmacht troops at Brécourt Manor made that calculation and chose life. The pursuit toward the command bunker reveals why the Germans left. Through the bunker's observation slit, Lieutenant Speer sees movement, soldiers in Wehrmacht gray-green uniforms running south through fields, perhaps 15 or 20 men, abandoning position entirely. They're not fleeing in panic. They're conducting tactical withdrawal, moving in formation, maintaining discipline. But they're leaving. The psychological tipping point happened somewhere in the past 3 hours. Maybe when Gun 1 fell, maybe when Gun 2 fell, maybe when the bazooka destroyed their last machine gun. At some point, the German commander decided the position was untenable and ordered withdrawal. The command bunker assault is anticlimactic. 6 German soldiers remain inside, hands raised in surrender before Easy Company enters. They're older men. One appears to be in his 40s, gray hair visible under helmet. The bunker contains radio equipment, maps, the administrative machinery of artillery fire direction. None of it matters now. The battery is destroyed. The mission is over. Lieutenant Winters accepts the surrender with minimal ceremony, assigns guards, and focuses on the final objective, gun number 4. The 4th howitzer sits in its prepared position, ammunition stacked neatly, weapon maintained and ready to fire. But without crew, it's inert metal. Winters places the thermite grenade himself. The 4th such grenade today, the 4th gun destroyed. The white-hot ignition, the melting steel, the transformation of weapon into slag. 12:34 hours, all 4 guns neutralized. The mission that began at 09:47 hours, 2 hours 47 minutes ago, is complete. The artillery battery that killed Americans on Utah Beach all morning fires no more. The silence after sustained combat is profound. For 3 hours, gunfire has been constant. Rifles cracking, machine guns chattering, grenades detonating, soldiers shouting. The human ear adjusts, expects the noise, anticipates the next shot. Then suddenly, nothing. Birds resume singing, wind rustles through orchard leaves. The everyday sounds of Norman countryside reassert themselves. Soldiers stand in the destroyed gun position, weapons still ready, waiting for the next threat. But the next threat doesn't come. The Germans are gone. The fight is over. Lieutenant Winters conducts rapid assessment of forces and capabilities. Casualties, 1 killed, 3 wounded from Easy Company and Dog Company combined. German casualties, estimated 25 killed, 12 captured, unknown number wounded and evacuated. Ammunition expenditure, approximately 600 rifle rounds, remaining from original 800, all grenades expended, 1 bazooka rocket remaining, Thompson and Bar ammunition critically low. Time elapsed, 2 hours 47 minutes from first shot to last gun destroyed. Mission status, complete. All 4 105mm howitzers destroyed or disabled. But completion doesn't bring celebration. The soldiers are too exhausted, too aware of cost, too focused on survival. Private William Dukeman is dead. Private Popeye Wynne is wounded seriously enough to require evacuation to England. Private John Hall will walk with limp for months. These costs cannot be erased by success. The mission accomplished what battalion ordered. Whether that success justified the costs is question without clear answer. The calculation involves variables that resist quantification. How many American lives on Utah Beach were saved by silencing these guns? Estimates range from dozens to hundreds, depending on assumptions about German ammunition supply and targeting accuracy. Unknowable numbers measured against very knowable costs. The SO. Equipment captured provides intelligence value, but little tactical value at this point. 4 destroyed howitzers, approximately 120 artillery shells now in American possession, personal weapons, radio equipment, maps showing German defensive positions across the sector. Intelligence officers will find this material useful for planning future operations. For the soldiers who captured it, the equipment is simply evidence of mission completion. They fought, they won, they survived. The details are for others to analyze. The walk back toward battalion positions begins at 12:45 hours. 32 men moving in loose formation, carrying wounded, leaving the dead for graves registration teams who will arrive hours later. Private Dukeman's body remains in the orchard, covered with shelter half, marked with rifle stuck in ground and helmet placed on top. The improvised memorial that will guide recovery teams. It's temporary, impersonal, inadequate, but it's what combat allows. Proper mourning comes later, if it comes at all. 1300 hours. Lieutenant Richard Winters stands alone among the destroyed guns, hands trembling from adrenaline crash that follows sustained combat. The trembling isn't fear, the danger is past. Germans are retreating, the position is secure, the trembling is physiology asserting itself. Autonomic nervous system processing 3 hours of maximum stress. Heart rate slowly declining from 160 beats per minute toward normal. Breathing deepening. Muscles discovering exhaustion that adrenaline masked. The body's emergency system shutting down now that emergency is past. Winters feels simultaneously exhausted and alert, drained and wired, the contradictory state that combat veterans recognize. The walk back to where Private William Dukeman's body lies is maybe 70 meters. 70 meters through orchards, where German soldiers fought and died, where earth is torn by grenade blasts, where blood darkens Norman soil. Winters has walked battlefields before, training exercises with simulated casualties, map problems examining historical engagements. But those were abstractions. This is Private Dukeman from Pennsylvania, 22 years old, who laughed at Sergeant Guarneri's jokes and complained about army food and dreamed about returning to civilian life. Was. Past tense. The linguistic shift from is to was represents the finality that defines death. Winters removes the shelter half covering Dukeman's body. The head wound is still visible, still terrible, still something that will appear in nightmares years from now. Winters has been trained in casualty procedures. Identify the body, confirm death, collect personal effects, prepare remains for graves registration. The training is clinical, procedural, designed to create emotional distance. But emotional distance fails when the body is someone you trained with, jumped with, led into combat. Winters removes Dukeman's identification tags, 2 metal rectangles on chain, one stays with body, one goes to commanding officer. The metal is still warm from body heat. That detail is somehow worse than the wound. Easy Company soldiers gather in the captured first gun position, smoking captured German cigarettes because their own ran out hours ago. No one speaks much. Combat veterans recognize the silence. Not uncomfortable silence, but the quiet of men processing trauma, replaying actions in their minds, calculating luck and proximity to death. Private Buck Compton sits against earthen wall, staring at nothing. Sergeant Bill Guarneri cleans his Thompson methodically, field stripping the weapon and reassembling it despite having cleaned it an hour ago, the ritual providing psychological anchor. Private Carwood Lipton writes in small notebook, recording details while memory is fresh. Different processing methods for the same experience. The discovery that Utah Beach operations continued successfully during the assault provides context, but not comfort. 4th Infantry Division pushed 2 miles inland while Brécourt guns were being silenced, securing causeways, linking with airborne forces, achieving D-Day objectives. The invasion succeeded. That's what matters strategically. But strategically successful operations consist of hundreds of small tactical actions, and each action costs something. Brécourt Manor was one small action among thousands on June 6, 1944. For the men who fought there, it was everything. Winters writes the casualty report in pencil on rain-soaked paper, reducing Dukeman's life to bureaucratic necessity. Dukeman, William J. Private, serial number 13024597. Killed in action, 6 June 1904, approximately 1105 hours, Brécourt Manor vicinity, cause of death, machine gun fire, hostile. Next of kin, Mrs. Eleanor Dukeman, mother, 147 Oak Street, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. 5 lines. A life compressed into administrative format. The report will travel through battalion to regiment to division to Army Personnel Center to telegram delivery to a mother in Pennsylvania who will receive it days from now and collapse in grief that Winters can imagine but cannot share. The physical aftermath of combat manifests in specific ways. Winters' hands are cut and bleeding from climbing through barbed wire and hedgerows. Uniform is torn in 3 places. Lost 8 pounds from dehydration and stress, weight loss that happens in hours when body burns calories at crisis rate. Right shoulder is bruised from rifle recoil, fired maybe 40 rounds during the action. Each round transferred kinetic energy that accumulated into tissue damage. Hearing is damaged, tinnitus ringing at frequency that will persist for days, possibly permanent damage from gunfire in enclosed spaces. Relatively minor injuries, all of them. But they'll accumulate over campaigns and years into the chronic pain that defines infantry veterans. Battalion reception is professional and minimal. Captain Hester offers brief congratulations. Good work neutralizing those guns. Immediate reassignment follows. Easy Company will secure a crossroads 2 kilometers south. Hold position until relieved. Establish defensive perimeter. No time to process, no time to rest, no time to mourn. The invasion continues. Other missions require execution. Soldiers who completed one impossible task receive another. That's how modern war functions. Constant operational tempo that prevents reflection, that treats completion of mission as signal to begin next mission, that extracts maximum utility from available forces. The impersonal machinery of war processes Dukeman's death with bureaucratic efficiency. Graves' registration team arrives at 1400 hours, 2 soldiers in clean uniforms carrying litter. They have processed dozens of bodies already today. Will process dozens more. Dukeman becomes Casualty 197-B in their log. The body receives identification tag, description of location found, preliminary cause of death assessment, loaded onto litter, carried to collection point, eventually transported to temporary cemetery, eventually buried with military honors in American cemetery, or returned to family in Pennsylvania if requested. The machinery is necessary. Armies cannot function if they treat every death as unique tragedy requiring individual grief. But the machinery's efficiency doesn't eliminate tragedy. It just distributes it. Comparison to training reveals how inadequate preparation was for this specific experience. Fort Benning taught tactics, fire and movement, assault procedures, leadership under stress. Camp Toccoa taught endurance, physical conditioning that made 3-hour firefight possible without total collapse. But neither training taught what it feels like to watch someone die, what it sounds like when bullets hit human flesh, what it smells like when thermite melts steel and burns human tissue simultaneously. The sensory details of combat resist simulation. Training prepares the body and mind as much as possible. Reality provides education training cannot replicate. The burden of command, truly understanding what that phrase means, settles on Winters with physical weight. He ordered men into combat. Dukeman died following those orders. Whether the orders were tactically correct doesn't eliminate the causal relationship between command and death. Military hierarchy insulates commanders from some psychological burden. Winters followed Captain Hester's orders. Hester followed Colonel Sink's orders. Sink followed division orders. Division followed corps, on up the chain to Eisenhower and the combined chiefs of staff who planned the invasion. But psychological insulation doesn't equal psychological protection. Winters gave the specific orders that put Dukeman in the specific place where German machine gun killed him. That fact cannot be distributed through chain of command. It remains with Winters, the best. Hollow feeling that defines post-combat experience isn't depression exactly. Soldiers in 1,300 hours on D-Day cannot afford depression because missions continue. It's recognition that success costs, that victory is purchased with specific human prices, that the calculations justifying military action become complicated when examined through the lens of individual loss. Strategically, Brécourt Manor assault succeeded completely. 4 guns destroyed, minimal friendly casualties, mission accomplished within acceptable parameters. Tactically, execution was competent, if not flawless. But those assessments feel disconnected from the reality of Dukeman's body under the shelter half, from Wynn's shoulder wound, from Hall's leg wound. Success and cost coexist without resolving into simple evaluation. The artillery that stopped firing at 12:34 hours had been killing Americans for 6 hours. From 0600, when the first shells fell on Utah Beach, until 12:34, when the 4th gun was destroyed, approximately 1,200 shells were fired toward American positions. Not all hit. Artillery is imprecise. Shells land in dispersion pattern, some near targets, some far. But even conservative estimates suggest 100 shells landed among concentrations of troops, landing craft, equipment. Each shell contained 14 pounds of high explosive. Each detonation created fragmentation pattern effective to 40 meters. The mathematics of destruction. 100 shells times approximate casualty radius equals dead and wounded Americans whose specific identities will never be connected to Brécourt Manor. The comparison analysis begins with data that survives in after-action reports. Utah Beach casualties for June 6, 1944. 197 the total. 63 killed in action, 134 wounded. Remarkably low for amphibious assault. Omaha Beach suffered 2,400 casualties from similar-sized landing force. The difference was German defensive capabilities. Omaha faced intact defenses with multiple artillery batteries, extensive fortifications, better positioned machine guns. Utah faced disrupted defenses where Allied air power and airborne operations degraded German ability to concentrate fire. Brécourt Manor's guns were a significant portion of artillery threatening Utah Beach. Their silence mattered. 4th Infantry Division after-action reports contain specific notation dated June 6, 1400 hours. Reduced enemy artillery fire after approximately 1,200 hours enabled movement inland with minimal casualties. The report is understated military language that conceals human meaning. Reduced enemy artillery fire means shells stopped killing soldiers. Enabled movement inland means men could advance without being blown apart. Minimal casualties means families didn't receive telegrams. The bureaucratic language is necessary for military record-keeping, but it abstracts away the specific salvation that Brécourt Manor assault provided. Interview excerpts from Utah Beach survivors, collected decades later by historians, provide ground-level perspective. Master Sergeant Lawrence Peters, 4th Infantry Division. We came off the beach around noon. Earlier, we couldn't move. Artillery was hitting the causeway every minute or so. Then it stopped. Just stopped. We didn't know why at the time. We just ran. The temporal correlation is precise. Artillery stopped when 4th Brécourt gun was destroyed. Causeway became passable. Troops moved inland. The causal chain connecting Easy Company's assault to 4th Infantry Division's advance is direct. Strategic map analysis shows cascade effects that amplified Brécourt Manor's impact. Causeway number 2 was the primary exit route for 23,000 troops, landing at Utah Beach on June 6th. If that causeway remained interdicted by artillery fire, troops would bottleneck on the beach, creating concentrated target for remaining German artillery and air power. The potential casualty multiplication from beach congestion is significant. Estimates range from additional 300 to 600 casualties, plus 4 to 8 hour delay in achieving D-Day objectives. Delay means German reinforcements have more time to arrive, defenses consolidate, counterattacks organize. The ripple effects extend far beyond immediate tactical situation. Artillery impact comparison between Utah Beach and Omaha Beach illuminates what might have happened if Brécourt guns continued firing. Omaha Beach suffered sustained artillery fire throughout June 6th. German batteries positioned on Pointe du Hoc and other positions maintained fire for hours, contributing to the catastrophic casualties that nearly failed the landing. Omaha had larger initial assault force than Utah, but suffered proportionally worse casualties because German artillery remained effective. Utah's relatively light casualties resulted partially from luck, partially from terrain advantages, and partially from actions like Brécourt Manor assault that neutralized German firepower before it could achieve full effect. The counterfactual historical analysis. What could have happened if Brécourt guns weren't silenced is speculative but instructive. Military historians constructed scenarios based on German artillery capabilities and American force dispositions. Worst case, Brécourt guns continue firing throughout June 6th, causeway remains interdicted, 4th Infantry Division cannot advance inland, beachhead remains compressed, German counterattacks hit concentrated forces, Utah beach operation stalls. Timeline extends D-Day +1 or +2 days, allowing German reinforcement from strategic reserve. Allied air superiority eventually prevails, but at significantly higher cost. The scenario isn't certain, but it's plausible. The calculated firing rate of German 105mm howitzers provides baseline for casualty estimation. 15 rounds per minute per gun, sustained fire. 4 guns equals 60 rounds per minute. During 6 hours of operation from 0600 to 1234, Brécourt guns could have fired approximately 21,600 rounds if fully supplied with ammunition. Actual firing was constrained by ammunition availability, probably closer to 1,200 rounds total, but the potential existed for devastating sustained fire had German logistics been better. Easy Company's assault interrupted that potential before it could manifest. Causeway No. 2 traffic flow data, reconstructed from 4th Infantry Division records, shows 14,000-plus troops used this exit route on June 6th and 7th. The causeway was 400 meters long, 3 meters wide at choke points, completely exposed to observation from Brécourt Manor's position. Artillery targeting this route would have required minimal adjustment, pre-plotted coordinates, standard firing tables, routine fire missions. The vulnerability was total. That 14,000 troops transited this route successfully, while Brécourt guns were silent, represents lives saved that can be quantified but not individualized, statistically significant, personally unknowable. Strategic timeline achievement provides another metric for Brécourt Manor's impact. 4th Infantry Division D-Day objectives included securing beach exits, linking with airborne forces, and advancing inland to establish perimeter 5 kilometers from coast. These objectives were achieved by 1800 hours June 6th, 6 hours ahead of worst-case planning assumptions. The acceleration resulted from multiple factors, but elimination of Brécourt Manor artillery was measurable contributor. 6 hours in invasion timeline represents difference between defensive success and potential failure. German reinforcement doctrine called for counterattack within 24 hours of landing. 6-hour advantage in perimeter establishment provided buffer against that counterattack. The recognition question, why Brécourt Manor assault wasn't more widely celebrated immediately, has multiple answers. First, operational security during active combat prevents publicity of successful actions. Second, thousands of similar small unit actions occurred on D-Day, creating overwhelming documentation that buried individual achievements. Third, American military culture in World War II prioritized unit cohesion over individual recognition, creating institutional bias against highlighting specific actions. Fourth, Easy Company continued fighting for 11 more months, accumulating other achievements that retrospectively seemed more significant than one assault on one morning. Recognition came later, decades later, when historians could contextualize Brécourt Manor within larger D-Day narrative. The ultimate assessment of impact requires acknowledging both measured effects and unmeasurable effects. Measured, 4 guns destroyed, approximately 60 German casualties, unknown number of American lives saved on Utah Beach, causeway secured for 14,000 troops. Unmeasurable, psychological impact on German defense, deterrent effect on German counterattack planning, confidence boost for Allied forces witnessing successful assault, tactical lessons applied to subsequent operations. War is quantifiable in retrospect, but experienced as chaos. Brécourt Manor succeeded in quantifiable ways that mattered strategically and in unquantifiable ways that mattered humanly. June 8, 1944. Captain Clarence Hester sits in requisitioned farmhouse, serving as battalion headquarters, writing medal recommendations on portable typewriter that skips every third letter. The form is standardized: name, rank, serial number, unit, date of action, description of valor, recommendation for specific award. Hester begins with Lieutenant Richard Winters, most senior participant, assault leader, most clear claim to recognition. The description takes 3 paragraphs: assumed command of scratch force, led assault on fortified artillery position against superior numbers, personally destroyed 2 guns, displayed exceptional leadership under fire. Recommendation: Medal of Honor. The bureaucratic journey of medal recommendations reveals military institutions' complexity. From Hester's typewriter, the recommendation travels through 5 layers of review: battalion commander, regimental commander, division commander, corps commander, army commander. Each layer can approve, downgrade, or deny. Each layer applies different criteria: tactical effectiveness, strategic impact, witness testimony, political considerations. Medal of Honor requires extraordinary standard, conspicuous gallantry, and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. The language is deliberately high bar. Approximately 3,500 Medals of Honor were awarded during World War II from 16 million service members, roughly 0.02%. Colonel Robert Sink reviews the recommendation at regimental level on June 20th. Sink knows Winters personally, watched him at Camp Toccoa, observed his performance during training, respects his competence. The action at Brécourt Manor clearly merits recognition. But Sink also knows institutional politics. Every division in Normandy is recommending soldiers for medals. Competition exists for limited recognition. Airborne divisions face skepticism from conventional infantry. Are paratroopers actually more effective or just better at self-promotion? The Medal of Honor recommendation for Winters will receive intense scrutiny. Sink needs to decide: push hard for highest award and risk complete denial, or recommend lower award with better approval probability. The witness problem complicates the process. Medal of Honor requires corroboration from witnesses outside the recommended. Soldiers' chain of command prevents units from promoting their own men without independent verification. But Brécourt Manor assault was conducted by Easy Company soldiers commanded by Winters, reinforced by Dog Company soldiers commanded by Spires. Every witness was within the chain of command. No independent observers were present. The action occurred in isolation from larger battle. How do you verify valor when everyone involved works for the same organization? The bureaucratic requirement designed to prevent fraud creates barrier to recognizing legitimate achievement. August 1944. The recommendation reaches Major General Maxwell Taylor, commander of 101st Airborne Division. Taylor faces quota constraints, informal limits on how many Medals of Honor each division can award without appearing to inflate achievements. 1st Infantry Division received 8 Medals of Honor for D-Day actions. 82nd Airborne received 7. 101st Airborne already recommended 6. Adding Winters would mean 7, tying 82nd, suggesting possible inflation. Taylor makes calculation: downgrade Winters to Distinguished Service Cross, 2nd highest award, upgrade several other worthy soldiers to Silver Star or Bronze Star, distribute recognition more widely across division. Politically savvy, arguably fair, definitely disappointing. The downgrade notification arrives at 506th PIR in September. Colonel Sink personally informs Winters of the decision. Medal of Honor denied, Distinguished Service Cross approved. Winters' reaction is characteristically understated. "I appreciate the recognition, sir. No protest, no anger, no political maneuvering." Winters never sought medals, didn't fight for recognition, didn't care about awards except insofar as they reflected on his men's performance. The Distinguished Service Cross is 2nd highest award. It's significant recognition. That it's not the highest possible award matters more to people who weren't at Brécourt Manor than to those who were. Other Brécourt Manor participants receive awards based on Hester's comprehensive recommendations. Sergeant Bill Guarneri, Silver Star, for leading flanking assault on gun number 1. Private Buck Compton, Silver Star for destroying machine gun position during assault on gun number 2. 7 others receive Bronze Stars with V device for valor. Private William Dukeman receives posthumous Silver Star, common practice to award deceased soldiers at higher level than living soldiers for same actions, acknowledging ultimate sacrifice. The medal presentations happen at Camp Mourmelon, France, in October 1944 during brief rest period between combat operations. Comparison to other D-Day actions shows arbitrary nature of military recognition. Technical Sergeant Frank Paragory, 116th Infantry Regiment, received Medal of Honor for destroying machine gun positions that threatened Omaha Beach. Advance, solo action, approximately 30 Germans killed, highly visible to witnesses including war correspondents. First Lieutenant Jimmy Monteith, 16th Infantry Regiment, received Medal of Honor posthumously for leading assault on German positions at Omaha Beach, witnessed by regimental staff, well documented. Both actions similar in character to Winter's assault, but with better documentation or witness availability. Recognition depends partially on achievement, but also significantly on bureaucratic factors. The political context of medal awards involves institutional priorities beyond individual merit. Airborne divisions competed with infantry divisions for resources, prestige, public attention. Too many airborne medals could suggest disproportionate contribution, threatening post-war force structure decisions. Too few could suggest airborne concept was expensive failure. Balance required. Similarly, balance required between officers and enlisted men. Too many officer awards suggests aristocratic bias. Too many enlisted awards suggests officers weren't leading. The bureaucracy managed perception through award distribution. Individual valor became input into institutional calculations. Medal of Honor criteria applied to Brécourt Manor reveals definitional questions. Conspicuous gallantry clearly applies. Assault on fortified position against superior numbers required courage. Intrepidity clearly applies. Winters advanced under fire, led from front, exposed himself to danger. Risk of life clearly applies. Machine gun fire, artillery potential, numerical disadvantage created death probability. The phrase above and beyond call of duty presents definitional challenge. Winters was ordered to assault the position. He obeyed orders. Is obeying orders, however dangerous, actually beyond duty? The philosophical question about whether following difficult orders qualifies as exceeding duty created space for administrative downgrade. The witness requirement reveals practical challenges of recognizing small unit actions. Large battles have multiple witnesses, staff officers, war correspondents, adjacent units. Small unit actions occur in isolation, with only participants as witnesses. Structural bias exists toward recognizing actions in large battles, where verification is easier. Brécourt Manor-type actions, platoon or company level, isolated from larger forces, conducted with minimal outside observation, systematically face recognition barriers. The bureaucracy designed to ensure medal integrity inadvertently creates verification standards that small unit actions cannot meet. Political competition between divisions for recognition created zero-sum dynamics. Every Medal of Honor awarded to 101st Airborne was implicitly denied to 82nd Airborne or infantry divisions. Division commanders managed limited recognition resources strategically. Maxwell Taylor's decision to downgrade Winters while upgrading others distributed recognition across more soldiers, benefiting divisional morale and public perception, strategically rational, individually frustrating for Winters who deserved highest recognition available. The tension between institutional needs and individual merit defines military bureaucracy. 1992. Dick Winters, 74 years old, returns to Normandy for the first time since 1945. He stands in a wheat field near Brécourt Manor, trying to reconcile memory with landscape. The orchard where 4 guns sat is gone, removed decades ago, replaced with agricultural field. The hedgerows that provided covered approaches were reduced by modernized farming. The manor house still stands, but the defensive positions are filled in, the trenches collapsed, the evidence of combat erased by 50 years of peaceful farming. Winters points toward where gun number 2 should be, explaining the assault to historian Stephen Ambrose, who's conducting research for a book about Easy Company. The physical landmarks are gone, but the mental map remains precise. Audio excerpts from Carwood Lipton interview in 1988, conducted by military historians documenting D-Day, capture the strange permanence of combat memory. Lipton, 66 years old, retail businessman from West Virginia, sits in interview room and describes June 6, 1944 with detail that seems impossible after 44 years. I remember the exact position where Dukeman fell. I remember the sound of the machine gun firing, that distinctive ripping sound of the MG-42. I remember the smell of the thermite grenade burning, but I cannot remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. The interviewer asks why combat memory is so persistent. Lipton struggles to explain. Your brain records differently when you might die. Everything becomes important. Everything gets saved. William Guarneri's memory, documented in multiple interviews from 1990s through 2000s, shows systematic differences from official after-action reports. Guarneri recalls the assault on gun number 1 happening at different time than reports indicate. His memory compresses the timeline, places events closer together. He remembers throwing 3 grenades instead of 2. He remembers more German soldiers than official estimates suggested. These aren't lies or fabrications. They're the product of how stress affects memory formation. Under extreme stress, human brains record vivid sensory details but distort temporal sequence and quantitative information. Guarneri's memory feels completely accurate to him because the emotional truth is preserved even when factual details shift. Discovery of discrepancies between official time logs and participant memories reveals how combat distorts time perception. Official battalion log, written contemporaneously on June 6, 1944, records first shot at Brécourt Manor at 09:47 hours. Final gun, destroyed at 12:34 hours. Total elapsed time, 2 hours 47 minutes. Participant interviews consistently estimate duration as 4 to 5 hours, or most of the day. The psychological time expansion under stress is a well-documented phenomenon. Time seems to slow when experiencing danger. Each second stretches, creating memory of longer duration than clock time measures. Both timelines are accurate in different ways. The Band of Brothers effect, beginning with Stephen Ambrose's book in 1992 and culminating with HBO miniseries in 2001, transformed Brécourt Manor from obscure tactical action into cultural touchstone. The television recreation, Episode 2, shows the assault in 10-minute sequence that prioritizes dramatic narrative over documentary accuracy. The hedgerows are more visually dramatic than reality. The explosions are larger. The German resistance is more organized. Winter's tactical decisions are compressed into clearer heroic arc. Millions of viewers formed mental image of Brécourt Manor based on this recreation. The cultural memory of the event diverges from historical reality, creating separate but related narratives. Neurological explanation for combat memory's peculiarities involves understanding how brain processes traumatic experience. Amygdala, structure that processes fear and emotional memory, becomes hyperactive during life-threatening situations, causing enhanced encoding of sensory details. Hippocampus, structure that provides temporal context and factual organization, becomes impaired by stress hormones, causing distortion of sequence and duration. The result? Memories that feel intensely real and accurate, but contain factual errors. Combat veterans remember with crystal clarity events that happened in sequence different from reality. Both the vividness and the inaccuracy are products of the same neurological process. Interview methodology challenges complicate historical reconstruction. Participants interviewed 45 to 60 years after events have memories influenced by multiple factors. Repeated retelling that reinforces certain details while forgetting others, exposure to other accounts that blend into personal memory, cultural narratives about war that shape how experiences are understood and described. Historians challenge, extract accurate historical information from memories that are genuinely recalled but demonstrably inaccurate in specific details. Cross-referencing multiple accounts helps, but when all participants share the same stress-induced memory distortions, convergence doesn't equal accuracy. Documentation comparison between after-action reports and participant memoirs shows systematic divergences. After-action reports, written within hours or days of June 6th, contain sparse factual details, times, locations, casualties, outcomes, no emotional context, no sensory detail, no individual experiences. Participant memoirs, written in 1990s and 2000s, contain rich narrative but questionable timeline accuracy. The historian's task requires synthesizing both sources, trusting contemporary documents for factual scaffolding while using later memoirs for experiential detail. Neither source alone provides complete truth. The mythology problem manifests when military institutions adopt Brécourt Manor as teaching case study. United States Military Academy at West Point uses the assault and leadership courses, presenting it as example of small unit tactics executed effectively under difficult circumstances. Army Ranger School uses it in mission planning exercises. Officer Candidate School analyzes Winter's decision-making. The pedagogical use is valuable. Real combat examples teach better than hypothetical scenarios. But the teaching simplifies reality, creates perfect textbook assault narrative that smooths over chaos, confusion, and luck that characterize the actual event. Students learn clean lessons from messy reality. Cultural impact measurement shows Brécourt Manor's evolution from tactical event to cultural symbol. Pre-Band of Brothers, approximately 2,000 people per year visited Brécourt Manor area. Post-Band of Brothers, approximately 50,000 per year. The site became pilgrimage destination, place where people connect with World War II history through specific narrative they know from television. The cultural meaning of Brécourt Manor in 2024 bears minimal relationship to its tactical meaning in 1944. It represents American valor, small unit leadership, individual initiative, abstract virtues embodied in specific action. Historical event becomes vessel for cultural values. The question of true version, official record, or lived memory resists simple answer. Official records are factually more reliable for objective details but lack experiential truth. Participant memories capture felt experience but distort factual details. The complete truth requires both: what happened, from records, and what it felt like, from memories. Historical methodology must hold both in tension without privileging one absolutely. The event occurred in specific time with specific outcomes. The event was also experienced by humans whose memories preserve different truth. Both truths matter. Present day, 2024. Brécourt Manor Memorial Site sits in Norman countryside, 80 years after the assault. Stone monument lists Easy Company participants, 13 names from original assault force, 12 names from Dog Company reinforcement, 8 names from additional reinforcements, 25 total. The monument is granite, weather-resistant, designed for permanence. Inscription reads, "In memory of the men of Easy Company, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, who on June 6, 1944, assaulted and destroyed 4 German artillery pieces at this location, enabling the success of Utah Beach. Landing. Factual. Concise. Inadequate. The wheat field where monument stands was orchard in 1944. Agricultural economics eliminated the orchard decades ago. Wheat is more profitable, easier to mechanize, requires less labor. The hedgerows were reduced to enable modern farming equipment. The manor house was renovated, sold, now serves as private residence. The physical evidence of combat has been erased by peacetime normalcy. Only the monument and memorial plaques mark the location where men died, where violence erupted, where history pivoted. Tourists photograph the monument, read the inscription, try to imagine machine gun fire and grenade explosions in this peaceful field. Imagination fails. The disconnect between pastoral present and violent past is absolute. Juxtaposition of tourist experience with archival footage, available in Normandy museums, shows the transformation. Archival film from June 7, 1944, shows Brécourt area. Destroyed guns, shell craters, bodies awaiting collection, buildings damaged by combat. The landscape is scarred, violated, bearing visible evidence of mechanized warfare. Contemporary footage shows the same geographic location: wheat swaying in breeze, birds singing, families walking memorial paths. 80 years separated these images. The land healed. The scars aren't visible. Only human memory and stone monuments preserve knowledge that violence happened here. The numbers laid bare provide brutal clarity about cost-benefit calculation. 25 Americans assaulted position defended by 50 Germans. 1 American killed, 3 wounded. Approximately 25 German killed, 12 captured. 4 artillery pieces destroyed. Unknown number of American lives saved on Utah Beach. Estimates range from dozens to hundreds. The mathematics are cold. 1 American life plus 3 wounded Americans plus 3 hours of combat purchased 4 guns destroyed, plus reduced casualties at Utah Beach, plus accelerated achievement of D-Day objectives. Strategically successful. Humanly terrible. Both assessments are valid simultaneously. Reading of Dick Winter's letter to Mike Ranney, written in 1991, provides personal perspective on Brécourt Manor's meaning 50 years later. The letter responds to Ranney's grandson's question. "Grandpa, were you a hero in the war?" Winters writes, "Grandson asked me the same question. I thought about the men I served with who didn't come home. I thought about Dukeman, about the guys who were wounded, about the ones who kept fighting after Brécourt through Holland and Bastogne and Germany. I answered, no, but I served in a company of heroes." The statement is simultaneously modest and accurate. Individual heroism mattered less than collective competence. Easy Company succeeded because 25 men trusted each other enough to assault impossible position and skilled enough to execute effectively. Final aerial shot, viewed through drone footage, available in 2024, shows the transformation of perspective. Camera starts at monument, showing tourists and memorial plaques and wheat field, then pulls back, rising, expanding field of view. The orchard area becomes visible, then the full manor grounds, then Sainte Marie du Mont, then the causeways, then Utah Beach visible in distance. The camera keeps rising until entire Normandy invasion sector is visible, 50 miles of coastline, where 150,000 Allied troops landed on June 6, 1944. Brécourt Manor is one small point in this vast landscape. The scale shift is vertiginous, humbling, contextualizing. Brécourt Manor's place in D-Day hierarchy emerges from comparative analysis. June 6, 1944, involved approximately 11,000 individual combat engagements, from individual sniper duels to company-level assaults to battalion operations. Most went undocumented in detail. Most participants died without recording their experiences. Most actions are lost to history, except in aggregate statistics. Brécourt Manor is exceptional, not because it was largest or most significant, but because it was documented, because participants survived to tell the story, because historians found the action valuable for analysis. Exceptional through preservation rather than inherent uniqueness. Educational legacy shows Brécourt Manor's continuing influence on military training. United States military tactical manuals reference the assault in 47 different publications. Infantry tactics, leadership development, small unit operations, airborne operations. The action serves as case study for specific principles: fire and movement, leadership under uncertainty, combined arms coordination, economy of force. Thousands of military officers study Winter's decisions at Brécourt Manor as part of professional military education. The tactical lessons extracted from 3 hours of combat on June 6, 1944, continue informing military training 8 decades later. Survivor statistics provide sobering timeline. As of 2024, all Brécourt Manor participants are deceased. Last survivor, Ed Tipper, died December 2023 at age 99. The transition from living memory to historical memory happened gradually, each death removing one voice, one perspective, one witness. When the last participant dies, the event transitions completely from lived experience to historical artifact. Documents remain, recordings remain, monuments remain, but the embodied memory, the ability to ask, "What was it like?" is gone forever. The loss is irreplaceable. The incomplete record acknowledgement reveals larger pattern in World War II historiography. An estimated 70% of D-Day small unit actions were never documented in detail beyond casualty reports and geographic notations in after-action reports. The experiences of hundreds of thousands of soldiers exist, only in fading memories or not at all. Brécourt Manor is exceptional because it was preserved through participant interviews, historical research, and cultural representation. The exceptional preservation creates distortion, making the documented seem typical when it's actually exceptional precisely because it was documented. Most soldiers' experiences are lost. Philosophical question about remembering war through exceptional moments versus aggregate statistics resists resolution. Remembering through exceptional moments like Brécourt Manor creates emotional connection, human understanding, narrative coherence. But it distorts by suggesting these moments are representative when they're definitionally exceptional. Remembering through aggregate statistics preserves accuracy but loses human meaning. 197 casualties at Utah Beach conveys information without understanding. Perhaps complete remembrance requires both, the statistics that show scale and the narratives that show humanity. Neither alone is sufficient. Modern tactical analysis continues finding value in Brécourt Manor assault. United States Army Infantry School still teaches Winter's approach: fire and movement, aggressive leadership, economy of force, objective focus. The specific tactics reflect 1944 technology and 1944 circumstances. But the principles transcend their origin. Small units assaulting superior forces still use fire and movement. Leaders still face decisions with incomplete information. Success still depends on training, trust, and tactical competence. The lessons remain relevant because human factors in combat remain constant despite technological change. The democracy question, how 12 citizens armed with rifles changed history, highlights paradox at heart of volunteer military. Democratic societies depend on citizens who can, when necessary, become effective soldiers. The transition from civilian to combat veteran requires training, but also requires qualities that can't be trained: initiative, courage, willingness to risk death for abstract objectives like securing causeway or silencing artillery. Brécourt Manor shows volunteer soldiers' potential. 25 Americans who volunteered for service, volunteered for paratroopers, then executed mission that professional military might have considered impossible. The success validates volunteer military concept. It also reveals the terrible costs that system imposes on those volunteers. What happens when there are no more living witnesses to any World War II action? The question becomes urgent as the last generation of veterans dies. Digital preservation captures some knowledge: video interviews, written memoirs, documentary films. But the ineffable quality of lived experience, the ability to ask follow-up questions, the human connection to history, these disappear permanently. Future generations will study World War II entirely through documents and recordings, never through conversation with participants. The transition is inevitable. The loss is incalculable. How should we remember wars? Through exceptional moments like Brécourt Manor, or through aggregate statistics that show scale? Both. Neither alone suffices. The exceptional moments make history human, accessible, emotionally resonant. The aggregate statistics prevent romanticization, show true costs, resist mythologization. Brécourt Manor matters because 25 specific Americans fought there, but also because it represents thousands of similar actions across Normandy on June 6th. The particular and the universal must be held together. The weight of ground, physical earth, Norman soil, wheat fields and orchards and hedgerows, carries history that resists erasure despite surface transformation. 80 years after combat, the land shows no scars, but the history remains embedded, accessible through monuments and documents and preserved memory. The weight is partly literal, countless tons of earth disturbed by shells and grenades and digging. Mostly it's metaphorical, the accumulated meaning of human actions that transform this particular place from agricultural land into battlefield, into memorial site, into pedagogical example. The ground bears weight it doesn't visibly show. The final assessment resists simple conclusion. Brécourt Manor assault was minor tactical action in massive strategic operation. It was also life-defining experience for 25 Americans and approximately 50 Germans. It saved unknown number of lives on Utah Beach. It cost 1 American life and 3 wounded. It demonstrated small unit tactics effectively executed. It benefited from luck and German mistakes as much as American competence. It's been mythologized and simplified and taught and memorialized and transformed into cultural symbol. All of these are true simultaneously. The assault was what it was, 3 hours of combat on June 6, 1944, and what it became, enduring example of leadership and courage and sacrifice, history and memory, fact and meaning, particular and universal. Brécourt Manor contains all of them. The weight of ground bears witness.